always offered a special bond between the generations, and on Father's Day it is celebrated like no other day. Even the Mets were out on the field before the game today. Fathers and sons, and yes, daughters too, all sharing their love for baseball. It's Father's Day at Shea Stadium as the Mets and Orioles hook up at Shea. From Shea Stadium in New York, WB11 Sports presents New York Mets baseball. Today, the Mets play the Baltimore Orioles. And a pleasant good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Shea. Gary Cohen and Ron Darling with you today, and a happy Father's Day to you all. And Ronnie, it's such a special day for baseball because it is so much about fathers and sons and daughters.
Well, I love this day. In the past, I've always gone away on this day with my father, but he was the best. When I was a kid, after 2 jobs, came home, 100 ground balls, 100 pitch balls every single day. I miss those days.
Well, I survived a father who was a Yankee fan, so it worked out just fine nonetheless. Meanwhile, the Mets take the field today looking to salvage the finale of a 3-game series against the Orioles after dropping the first 2. Tom Glavine has a 7-game winning streak intact, but 7 home runs allowed in his last 2 starts.
Yeah, he's really struggled in his last couple of starts, and one of the reasons is he has been pitching earlier in the season his changeup inside the right-handers, his changeup inside the left-handers. But to the right-handed hitters, he's been leaving that ball out over the middle of the plate. His last 2 starts, he's given up leadoff home runs. Rafael Furcal hit 2 in Dodger Stadium. So Glavine's going to try to get back on the men, try to get that pitch inside of the right-handers, and try not to give up those gopher balls.
Meanwhile, the Mets will try and get back on track because after that 9-1 road trip, the Mets have not been playing the same kind of crisp baseball that they did during the trip. 3 errors last night, a couple of other mental mistakes as they try and get their offense righted and their fielding as well.
Yeah, you're not going to go 9-1 all the time, Gary, but it's the way they've been losing. Any team can beat you in baseball. That's the adage because they got 2 well-pitched games, Bedard and Benson last night. Glavine's going to try to get them off the schneid and get them a little momentum going against a tough Cincinnati Red team.
Reds come in for 4 games starting tomorrow night here at Shea Stadium. So the Mets and Orioles this afternoon here at Shea on Father's Day. And we'll hear from many of the Mets about some of their Father's Day memories as we continue from Shea on a hot Sunday afternoon. We have reached the stage of the season where we can invoke the 3 H's: hazy, hot, and humid. It is summertime weather at Shea as Tom Glavine gets set to take the mound this afternoon in search of career win number 285. And young Adam Loewen will make just his 4th major league start for the Orioles. As what the 2 of them have done in their respective careers. Rather large disparity, wouldn't you say?
A lot of numbers out there on the right-hand side.
Adam Loewen facing a former Cy Young Award winner, as he's done now in each of his first 4 starts. That's never happened before in history. It is Father's Day, which makes it Kids' Day as well, because after all, fathers are all about kids. And there are many fathers and kids in the stands today. If you're a baseball player, you play on Father's Day, and fathers help get many of the Mets to where they are today.
I just think sitting around watching the game, him teaching me, and just introducing me to what it means to play the game and to respect it.
I think the most thing is probably being in the backyard. My dad playing catch with me, bending down saying, throw it here, son. And I mean, like, the target was like huge. It's like you couldn't miss. And I think some guys probably relate that to, up here.
Pretty much our whole childhood. He came to every game, was always there. Way before the game started, way after it ended. He was just always positive, always encouraging. And so, and still to this day, I mean, he finds the positive in everything. I can come in and blow a lead, and he'll find some kind of positive out of it to tell me about.
And that's what it's all about, isn't it? Positives. It's about teaching your kids the right way of doing things and doing it in an encouraging way. And fathers all across the land have reason to be proud today. Back with the first pitch, Mets and Orioles coming up from Shea. New York Mets baseball is brought to you by Jeep. Check out the #1 best-selling brand of SUVs in the Northeast. By Budweiser, bright, crisp, clean, pure. This is Budweiser. This is beer. By Infinity, using the power of design to create dynamic, beautiful automobiles. By Singular Wireless, raising the bar. By Dodge, you can take life as it comes or you can grab life by the horns. Dodge. By TD Bank Financial Group, paying serious attention to what counts, you. And by Hyundai. Take the Hyundai Challenge. Visit HyundaiChallenge.com. Tom Glavine makes his 15th start of the year this afternoon. Be decked in traditional Mets garb. And here's the Nissan Orioles lineup that will face him. Javy Lopez in the lineup behind the plate for the Orioles. And they've got another right-handed bat in the lineup as well, Luis Matos, to try and put as many right-hand bats as possible in against Glavine.
Well, Glavine, we talked about it. He's 7-0 with 2 no decisions in his last 9 starts. A 3.61 ERA, but has struggled with the home run ball. Going to try to change that today.
And Brian Roberts swings at the first pitch and flies it to pretty deep right center. Eli Marrero back, and he makes the catch. First pitch by Glavine, and Eli Marrero, making his first Shea Stadium start as a Met, gets right into the act.
Get ready, get set, go, as the first pitch from Roberts is laced in the right center gap. And Eli Marrero, who started his career as a catcher, can play some infield and all the outfield positions, makes a fine running catch going away.
Well, that's an improvement for Glavine, because in each of his prior 2 starts, the first batter of the game hit a home run.
He kept him in the yard this time, although just barely.
Rafael Furcal in L.A., Jimmy Rollins in Philadelphia, but this one stayed in the yard. Jeff Conine hitting second, and he takes outside for ball 1. Conine starting for the first time in the series. The veteran playing first base today and hitting .236. Kevin Millar started the first 2 games at first base, and Glavine's changeup is a strike 1-1. Tommy trying tonight for career win number 285.
See that grip? That's a fastball grip there.
And he comes on the inside corner with it, 1-2.
Now you can tell at home that's a fastball grip. Once he gets it, you just see 2 fingers on the ball. If it's going to be a changeup, he'll have his whole hand gripping that ball. You see he's got the changeup grip right now. There it is, and he holds it. That'll be a changeup.
And he comes to the inside corner with it and gets Conine looking. And that's such a big change, Ronnie, for Glavine. In the past, he'd come inside occasionally with the fastball, but not with the changeup.
Yeah, it's just it's a nice combination. See that grip? He's got all 3 fingers on that ball instead of 2. That's the changeup. Conine takes it for strike 3.
So Glavine with career strikeout number 2,416, and that ties him for 34th place all time with Luis Tiant. And Melvin Mora takes ball 1. Mora, the former Met, had the big night in the opening game of the series Friday night with a homer and 3 RBIs. Melvin having a good year, hitting .285, and he takes the fastball for a strike, 1-1. Glavine 9-2 on the year, trying to become the first 10-game winner in the majors this season. Seems to me the 18th of June is a little late for the majors to not have a 10-game winner.
Yeah, you really think that by this time someone has come out of the pack with 12 or 13 wins. Not that they're going to win 20, because a lot of times they slow down, but usually someone has jumped out. But everyone's bunched together this year.
And Mora takes inside 3-1. However, over the last 16 years, only 1 Met pitcher has reached 10 wins before the end of June. And that was Bobby Jones, who got off to a 12-4 start by the end of June in 1997. Miguel Tejada waiting on deck. Glavine behind 3-1, and Mora laces one the other way. Long run for Marrero, and he runs it down. And that hits that sidewall up on the grassy knoll. Nicely done by Marrero, going both ways to catch a couple of fly balls and help Glavine to a 1-2-3 inning as the Mets come up in the bottom of the first. '22-year-old Adam Loewen makes his 4th major league start for the Orioles. And here's the Nissan Mets lineup to face him. David Wright has had some good numbers hitting 4th. He's also had great numbers this year against left-handed pitchers. And he gets the cleanup spot today with Delgado getting the day off. Something of a funky Sunday lineup for Willie Randolph today.
Funky Sunday lineup with all right-handed hitters against Adam Loewen.
And Jose Reyes leads off and thinks about a bunt, takes ball 1.
Adam Loewen's one of those young pitchers, 6'5", 235 pounds. These big left-handed pitchers have a hard time with their mechanics, but he's had flashes of brilliance so far this season.
Two and 0 to Reyes.
Fastball, curveball, working on a changeup. He really made some progress with Scott McGregor, the great Baltimore left-hander, when he was in Bowie in Double-A last year.
They rave about his curveball. And he throws a fastball for a strike, 2-1.
What I was saying about mechanics for left-handers, think about Randy Johnson. There used to be a left-hander here with the Mets in the 80s, David West. They have so many body parts to try to get in sync that it usually takes those guys a little longer to get their mechanics right, that they can be consistent.
Reyes fouls it off. And why does it seem as though it takes the lefties longer than it takes the righties?
Well, I think a couple reasons. One is that left-handed pitchers don't have a lot of guidance when they're coming up when they're younger, because there aren't that many left-handed pitching coaches, especially when you're younger. American Legion ball, Little League, that. And for him to get to work with Scott McGregor last year, that really helps.
And also remember that Loewen is Canadian. His high school did not have a baseball team. However, he had a lot of experience on the big stage early. He was in the Little League World Series as a 12-year-old, as a 6'4", 180-pound 12-year-old.
That's not fair.
No, it's not.
You've got to have a rule like they have in midget football. You can't be over 6 feet tall.
Can you imagine? I mean, you know, your son's 12, right?
Exactly.
And I have a son who's 12 also. And can you imagine a 6'4", 180-pound kid pitching to them? It's nuts. 3-2 to Reyes, and he pops it up. On the right side of the infield, Roberts takes charge. One away. So one out and nobody out.
And the Audi Orioles defense. Look at the defense brought to you by Audi. Greater to lead than to follow as Luis Matos, 9th start in left field this season, but he's batting under 200, trying to get him some at-bats. Javy Lopez, who had some of his best years when he was in Atlanta, has struggled since coming over to Baltimore, is doing the catching today.
Here's Eli Marrero making his second start as a Met after coming over in the trade from the Rockies for Kaz Matsui. Eli 1 for 6 as a Met, hitting .212 overall. And he takes a strike. Marrero was a guy who had a couple of years with the Cardinals and with the Braves where he was the quintessential extra player. He had great seasons. He had 18 home runs one year, playing about half the time. Fouls it back, but last year was a lost year for him, playing in the American League. And this year he got off to a slow start with Colorado and trying to reclaim what had been a pretty nice niche for himself.
Yeah, he belongs in the National League where there's a lot of moves. He also runs very well for a former catcher or a guy who still catches.
He had been away from catching for a few years until the Rockies got him into a few games behind the plate this season. It's funny, I was joking with Paul Duduki yesterday because Paul's a former soccer player, and we were standing there watching the U.S. play Italy in the World Cup. Paul was a junior national soccer player. Marrero slowly to short, and it can't be barehanded by Tejada. Well, there's the speed of Marrero, because with a normal catcher type running, there's no way that Tejada tries to barehand that ball.
Although I will tell you, I don't like this play. You know, there's one guy who makes that play, Omar Vizquel, and everyone else tries it and they can't make it. That is a play that you want to use your glove, throw to first. Marrero with that great speed, though, you can see how he runs. Nice form.
Well, we've already seen it in the outfield and on the base paths now from Marrero, so that's with yet another guy who can get down the line. And now here's Beltran, who's 0 for 8 in this series after a rollicking road trip. Average of .288 on the year, and he takes ball 1. Anyway, LaDuca, whose grandfather actually played for Italy in the World Cup back in the 30s, believe it or not. So he had split loyalties yesterday. Was very happy to see the U.S. and Italy tie. But anyway, he was talking about how he used to be able to run fast before he had all these years of catching. And I said, well, at least you're the fastest Met catcher, referring to Ramon Castro. He said, well, but now we have Eli. 2-0 to Beltran.
Knocked down a peg.
I said, well, he hasn't been in a game yet behind the plate, so you're still number 1. Loewen behind on Beltran, 2-0. Guerrero back easily. Eli has 3 stolen bases this year.
Well, Loewen is trying to learn a changeup with Leo Mazzone, who's about as good can be, and teaching you a changeup, but you won't see very many. 2 fingers on the ball.
And he throws a fastball strike, 2-1.
Well, they have the makings of some good pitchers over here. Bedard looked really good on Friday night. Benson, of course, had a great game last night.
And Daniel Cabrera, who may be the best of them all. Beltran drives it to center. Patterson got a late jump, but he gets back. And that's the second out. So Patterson, who had his problems in center field in the game last night, was able to track that ball for the second out.
Well, he had one hit right at him last night from Delgado that he misplayed into a double. Patterson a little better on that play.
So 2 out, and here's David Wright, who had a 10-game hitting streak come to an end last night. David's still 6th in the National League in batting with that .330 average.
Just a mini rock so far for Leo Mazzone early in the game.
It's only been an infield hit. Got to wait for at least a walk or a runner in scoring position to get Leo in full tilt.
He is a funny guy. Love sitting down talking pitching with him.
He can talk.
I was talking to him the other day, and he was saying that he watched how Glavine doing, Maddox is doing, Schmoltz. I said, so you're front runner. I mean, you don't talk about anyone else. And the other guys that are struggling around the league. He said, yes, absolutely.
Well, he's got one of the guys who didn't work out in Atlanta, Bruce Chen, on his staff in Baltimore. And Wright fouls it off, and whether it's coincidence or not, Chen, who had a very good year for the Orioles last year, has struggled with Mazzone here this year. I mean, there have been a number of pitchers come through Atlanta, guys who have had success elsewhere, like Jason Schmidt, like Chen, who didn't succeed under Leo. But he certainly has had impeccable credentials. 1-1 to Wright.
Yeah, you can't dispute what he's done. I think a lot of people try to poo-poo him as a pitching coach because he's had Glavine and Maddox and Schmoltz, but you know, he's done a fine job with them. He's made them better. You ask them to a man, they'll tell you that.
And Wright lines up base hit to left. Guerrero stops at second, and the Mets have 2 on with 2 out. The only thing about Leo, Ronnie, is that in Atlanta, they had to construct a bullpen virtually every year. And think of the number of guys, as you look at Wright's base hit, who he was able to take and mold into effective closers and setup men.
Yeah, he had a great ability, I think, to work with a lot of different kind of pitchers, whether they're power pitchers or finesse pitchers. And he had the same adage for all of them. Throw strikes, change speeds. That was the key for him. And one of the things he likes to teach his pitchers, he's trying to teach Loewen, trying to teach Bedard, trying to teach Cabrera. Master one part of the strike zone with your fastball. Be able to throw that ball down and away when you have to, on command, every single time. And if you can do that, you have a chance.
Well, Julio Franco getting a rare start today, just his 4th of the year. Hitting at .341. He's only had 44 at bats, but what a find he's been. And he takes ball 1. On the field, off the field. Mets could not be more pleased with what Julio Franco has brought to the table. And on Father's Day, he is Father Time.
You know how he does it. Amazing.
2-0. So Loewen working consistently behind in the count.
You know, I always ask Keith about this because he has a different view than I do. I always ask him, how hard is it to face a young pitcher? He's 2-0. You have no idea if he's going to center a pitch or not. I mean, this pitch could be over your head or it could be right down the middle. Keith said that he loves to face these guys, so he knows at one point he's going to get a pitch in the strike zone to hit.
And on 2-0, Franco gets that fastball but fouls it off, and it's 2-1. And Loewen throwing almost all fastballs here in the first inning.
Well, you know you got a good fastball if that you can just keep throwing it and you still beat a guy on a 2-0 pitch. Franco, Met fans have been watching him. When he faces a good fastball, he plays inside outs it and hits it to right center, right field, and will pull the breaking pitch.
2 on and 2 out here in the opening inning. And Franco grounds it right at Roberts. And so Loewen able to work around a couple of hits in the opening inning. Adam Loewen facing a Cy Young Award winner for his 4th straight start, and he's even with Glavine so far. Second inning, Tom Glavine, after throwing a 1-2-3 first, will take on Miguel Tejada leading off the second. Bet you wouldn't guess that's my family, would you?
Boy, at least your family came out. Mine was 10 toes up when I left this morning.
Nicely
Everyone's
done,
sleeping.
kids. Hey, you did a nice. That's a very nice sign. Thanks, guys.
To go.
Miguel Tejada will lead off the second inning. And he takes ball 1 from Glavine. Tejada hitless in this series. Today playing consecutive game number 989. We're talking about it the last couple of days about Tejada and his streak as he lines a base hit to left center. And that one heads toward the gap. Millage does a great job to cut it off, but Tejada nonetheless will have a 2-base hit. First hit against Glavine. And Tejada shaken up after that slide.
Well, this pitch away, Tejada, you have to pitch him in. That's a changeup. See that grip, 3 fingers on it, and the circle with the forefinger and thumb stays up in the strike zone. That's been one of the problems that Tommy's had in the last couple of starts. Those pitches have been up in the strike zone. Easy for them to hit. Good play by Millage getting to it, but hit too far for Tejada, who needs a little sliding practice, I think, after the game.
Javy Lopez takes a strike. Javy making his first start in this series. He's in an awkward position in this series. He's been DHing most of the time. Also doing the backup catching behind Ramon Hernandez, but with no DH, limited role for Lopez. That wasn't the plan. The plan this year was for Javy to play first base.
Yeah, we watched him in spring training attempting to play first base, and in fact, Sam Palazzo was telling me at some point in spring training he just did not want to play there anymore because he completely lost his confidence.
It's funny because during spring training this year we saw a couple of guys trying to learn to play first base for the first time. We saw Javy Lopez with the Orioles, and the next day we saw Nomar Garcia-Parra with the Dodgers. And what a difference, a guy who's used to playing on the infield and is a great athlete.
And Nomar, of course, played football, great soccer player, quick feet, good hands at shortstop. You knew he'd pick it up. It just needed a little work.
Glavine misses with the changeup 2-2.
But Palazzo was saying that Javy Lopez was getting embarrassed there. No one with the track record that he's had as his pitch is a little inside wants to be embarrassed. But the same token, they needed him to be a first baseman this year. They have a hole there.
That's the same thing we saw with Mike Piazza a couple of years ago. As he lines a base hit to left, Tejada to third. He'll be stopped there by Tom Trebelhorn as Millage gets it into the cutoff man. Very nicely done. But the Orioles have first and third and nobody out.
Well, let's look at the defense brought to you by Audi. It's greater to lead than follow. You see Julio Franco getting the start, deservedly so. 4th start this season. But we got the Bombardier squad out there. Marrero in right field, Woodward at second, Millage in left field, and Castro doing the catching.
By the way, the Mets today activated Xavier Nady, replacing Cliff Floyd on the roster. Floyd placed on the DL last night.
You see Tejada running, laboring almost. That slide might have done something to him. Miggy, of course, not as spry as he used to be.
He's had the sore knees. Remember, the Orioles started this road trip in Minnesota and Toronto, playing 7 straight games on artificial turf, which doesn't help.
Yeah, I think that bad slide might have hurt his leg. You know, they water this infield before the game, so sometimes it's a little sticky, tacky. And I think that's what happened to him. But as Patterson's up, you were talking about Miguel Tejada, and people within the Baltimore organization would love him at some point to try to go over to first base and bring Brandon Fahey and put him at shortstop. They say Fahey to Tejada is night and day as far as defense playing the shortstop position is concerned, with Fahey being able to get to everything.
Fahey got to play a little bit there earlier in the year when Tejada DH'd a few games when his knees were hurting. He started the first 2 games of this series in left field and can hit. Back to Glavine, has a double play chance, and they can't double up the speedy Patterson as a run comes home.
You know, that was very interesting. That's something that I didn't think Tom Glavine would do. One of the things you do on a comeback with first and third is that you look the runner back at third base. He did not. He went for the double play, did not turn it. But one of the keys is when you get that ball, you look at the runner at third, then you go to second and first. But I think Tommy assumed that there's no way that Miguel Tejada was going to come in. But Tejada was caught off third base, and he would have had him.
So it's 1-0. There goes Patterson. The throw to second by Castro is right on target. And Corey Patterson is thrown out for only the 4th time this year.
Well, good job by Ramon Castro. Pitch is a little down, but he makes an accurate, nice throw. Good tag by Woodward, getting that down quickly. Ball beat him. Patterson's leg might have got in before the tag, but that's a ball beat you, you're out.
Patterson leading the American League in stolen bases with 28. Castro guns him down. 2 out and nobody on. The Orioles with a 1-0 lead. The thing about that first and third nobody out situation is, as a runner at third, aren't you taught you have to go on that play?
No, I don't think so. Not if it goes back to the pitcher. If it's second base or shortstop, absolutely. But I know what you're saying, that if it's back to pitcher, the worst thing that can happen, you get in a rundown,
right,
and you can maybe get the guys to second and third. I don't know if...
But even first and second and 1 out is better than a double play and a runner at third, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But that's why you're looking back. I think that Tommy, if he had his choice, he would have got Tejada, would not given up a run, had first and second 1 out, tried to work out of it that way.
1-2 to Matos. And the changeup hit to short. And Reyes with time throws out Matos, side retired. So Glavine able to minimize the damage thanks in part to Castro's fine throw on Patterson. 1-0 Baltimore.
And Baltimore's broken out on top 1-0 here as we head to the bottom of the 2nd inning at Shea. Chris Cotter along with Ron and Gary. It's a beautiful day for baseball. Beautiful day for fathers out there as well. Happy Father's Day. And it's a beautiful day for Xavier Nady, who after being on the DL with the appendectomy is back with the Major League Club. I spoke with him before about coming back up here and what he had to go through in terms of rehabbing. And he said, you know what, it's really very different to get used to playing even at the AAA level. The lighting is different. The pace of the game is different. And he hit very well, but he said it was tough to get used to. He also had about 3 hours of sleep last night. That's why he's not in the starting lineup today.
All right, Chris, and I had fun today. I got to compare scars with Xavier. we got to talk about appendectomy recovery and painkillers and stamina and all that fun stuff.
And his was a little different than yours, of course. So
yeah, well, but it's good because we got to scope out the differences in case we ever have another. I guess you can't have another, can you? But what was also nice is that the fans sent him stuff to while away his time when during his rehab, and he got a magnetic checker set from a fan in the mail, and he shared it with me.
Oh,
wasn't that nice? And Woodward goes down swinging, and that's the first out.
Well, I think you're a gamer because you got your appendectomy after him, and you came back earlier.
Yeah, he's also got to do a lot more activity in his job than I do in mine.
Well, you see Loewen, his ball just takes off when it's up in the strike zone. A lot of life on that fastball, primarily what he's thrown through the first 4 outs of this game.
So 1 out and nobody on. Here's Castro, starting for the 18th time this season, and has already contributed with his fine right arm. Ramon hitting at .250 on the year. And takes ball 1 from Loewen. Lastings Millage hitting 8th in the order on deck. We mentioned that Loewen is facing a Cy Young Award winner for the 4th straight time to start his career. Nobody's ever done that before. He faced Randy Johnson in his first big league start, Roy Halladay in the 2nd and 3rd, and Tom Glavine here today, all former Cy Young Award winners. And Castro rifles one to center, but Patterson's right there, 2 away. The previous record holder in that odd regard was Omori Telemaco, who when he came up with the Cubs in '86, and here's the common thread, faced Doug Drabek, Greg Maddux, and Tom Glavine.
Oh, gee.
How about that? In 96, I should say, not 86. So Glavine has been a part of both ends of that record. Here's Millage hitting at 276. Had 3 hits in the game last night. Mets otherwise have really struggled offensively in the first 2 games of this series, particularly getting the big hit, which is something they seem to own during the road trip. Mets have gone just 2 for 17 with runners in scoring position in the first 2 games. And it's 1-1 to Millage.
And you know, Gary, the Mets have really struggled as Willie looks on against these rookie pitchers and against pitchers they have not seen a lot. 4-2 so far against these hitters. 239 batting average, which isn't good.
1-2 to Millage, and you wonder why should it be any different for the Mets than it is for anybody else. There's a bit of mystery involved in at least pitchers are seeing for the first time.
Always advantage pitcher if they can throw the ball over the plate. Loewen so far has been able to do that.
And he gets Millage up and in. Impressive inning for Adam Loewen. He gets the Mets 1-2-3 with a couple of strikeouts. So Loewen off to a good start, and the Canadian left-hander has a 1-0 lead. Third inning is Shea on Father's Day. Leo Mazzone rocking and, well, rolling. He and Adam Loewen discuss pitching matters. You wouldn't know that Loewen just had a great inning, would you?
Well, wouldn't you love to work with that talent? Loewen so far, very lively fastball.
And he hasn't even unveiled that curveball that everybody talks about.
Well, the Mets hitters are going to have to try to make him get the ball down because upstairs they're not going to have a chance.
Nick Markakis takes a strike. You know, the Orioles this year have really struggled against left-handed pitching. In fact, their team batting average against lefties is .216. Markakis, a left-hand batter who has not hit lefties well, but you know, it's not just him. Guys like Miguel Tejada, a right-hand hitter, Melvin Moore, a right-hand hitter, they've struggled against lefties this year.
Doesn't make any sense with those guys that they would struggle against left-handers. Javi Lopez, Ramon Hernandez.
And as a consequence, when a lefty has started against the Orioles, they are 5-16 this year. Leo even rocks when his team bats. How do you figure that? You figure maybe when the pitcher's up. See if Loewen can duplicate Benson's feat of last night. Markakis fouls it off. Whereas Nick Markakis used to be a pitcher, so maybe Leo feels a kinship there. In fact, they say Markakis can still throw 94 miles an hour. Glavine just misses 2-2.
Darryl Strawberry used to always tell Dwight Gooden that he could throw harder than he could. We're in Montreal. They had a gun. He went on the mound, never broke 84, and he was out like 2 or 3 days with a bad arm. So I don't know if Davey knew that.
Sounds like Jose Canseco.
Yeah, exactly. Throwing knuckleballs, right?
Canseco begged his manager to send him to the mound. He did. That was it. It was the end of his season. It was Loewen who will get his first career plate appearance in a moment. 2-2 to Markakis, and it just misses 3-2. The Orioles are a team in transition, and Markakis is one of those guys who they hope will be a big part of their future. Sam Perlazzo in his first full year as skipper of the Orioles after being installed last year as the interim. Still 3-2 to Markakis.
No, Gary, coming out of spring training, they were going to give the center field job to Markakis, but Patterson played well enough in spring training and gotten off to this quick start.
Markakis right now filling in right for Jay Gibbons, who's hurt. He's got himself a long turn at bat going against Glavine. He's already seen 10 pitches. Gibbons is a guy who is a terrific hitter, but can't seem to stay on the field. And that's always a problem when you're an organization trying to move forward and figure out who's going to help and who's not. To figure out the guys who can stay and play every day. And Markakis keeps this at bat going.
You can't help the club when you're in the tub. You know, that's one of the problems. And you know, people overlook that. You know how important it is that your starting pitchers make their starts. You know how important it is to a manager that he knows he can count on you every day. It's a very important part of a 162 game schedule.
3-2 pitch grounded to second. And Woodward throws out Markakis, so Glavine wins that battle on the 12th pitch. Glavine, a guy who rarely gives in to the hitter, and nobody knows that better than his former pitching coach in Atlanta, Leo Mazzone.
Tommy's a great adjuster. He made great adjustments in Atlanta. He's made great adjustments here, and I think he's the toughest-minded individual out on the mound than any pitcher I ever had the privilege of coaching, and he will not give in to the strike zone. I saw him not walk a guy in spring training just to pitch around a guy and not give in to him in spring training game. You know, so he's just he's a special person. He's a special pitcher. He's going to the Hall of Fame, and I can't wait till he goes into the Hall of Fame because I want to be there to toast him.
Amen to that. Loewen grounds out to Franco in his first big league at bat, and they're 2 away.
That being said, I will disagree with Leo a little bit in the sense that since last year's All-Star break, I think Glavine has completely changed the way he pitched and the way Mazzone watched him pitch, with fastballs away, teasing them with changeups away, working the strike zone and working it away from the batter. Tommy Glavine, with this quest deck, has decided to pitch to the strike zone. He's throwing fastballs and changeups on both sides of the plate. So I think he is challenging hitters, and I think that's one of the reasons when he has a little hiccup, he will give up some home runs, things he never did in the past, because he's thrown more strikes.
Well, he had to change because, as you said, the strike zone changed. I mean, there was a time when you could work an inch or two off the outside corner and get strikes, and it's not that way anymore. Even Doug Eddings wouldn't give the hitters that pitch, the pitchers that pitch last night. Over the bag and down the line, an extra base hit for Brian Roberts. Village cuts it off, but Roberts easily into second base with a double. That's Roberts' 5th hit in 12 at bats in this series.
Well, Roberts so far, you can see right-handed and left-handed, has the ability to have that short, compact swing. Another changeup inside that Roberts is able to keep fair down that line.
So that's the Orioles' 3rd hit off Glavine. And here's Conine. Conine went down looking his first time up. And lead on the fastball, 0-1. Jeff Conine will turn 40 years of age in 9 days. He has fashioned himself quite a career. Once known as Mr. Marlin. He really was the linchpin of that franchise in their early days. And was able to return and have the second round of glory with them in their championship year of 2003. Jeff Conine had 4 hits in the first game the Marlins ever played in 1993, and was just beloved by the fans down there when they had fans. 2-1 the count.
Did Charlie Huff start that
Yes,
game for the Marlins?
Good call. Yes, he did. Imagine that first game in your history, and you've got an elderly knuckleballer on the mound. On 2-1, it's tapped up the third base line and kicks foul. Meanwhile, the current day Marlins are on an incredible hot streak. They beat Toronto last night behind Brian Moeller. The Marlins have won 7 in a row, 17-6 over their last 23. Although they're down by a run today, they are right on the precipice of knocking the Braves into last place. So Joe Girardi's got that team playing a whole lot better.
Well, you knew they'd play hard for Girardi, and he, like Willie, coming from the same camp of the Yankees, do a great job of instructing, teaching within the concept of the game. We've seen it with Willie with Millage. Glavine cut from the same stock.
Conine lifts it to left. Millage putting the glasses down, and he's got it. Side retired. So Conine flies out. Millage might have gotten confused about how many out there were. He was ready to make a throw. Whoops.
That'll cost you.
We go to the bottom of the 3rd here at Shea, and the first run of the game is brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. America runs on Dunkin'. Mets not able to turn that double play as Tejada came home with the first run. And Tom Glavine leads off the home 3rd and takes ball 1 from Adam Loewen. So So Tejada between innings, chatting up Manny Acta, the Mets third base coach, for whom he played during the World Baseball Classic. Manny managed the Dominican team. 1-1 to Glavine. Adam Loewen pitched for the Canadian team in the World Baseball Classic. I was talking with Jim Duquette, former Mets general manager, who's now in the same position with the Orioles. And it's 2-1 to Glavine, and he was going back to the fact that during spring training, the Orioles had 4 of their 5 starting pitchers and all 3 of their catchers playing in the World Baseball Classic. And he says that he believes that the reason why the Orioles got off to such a bad start was because they just never had their team intact during spring training. 3-1 to Glavine is a call strike.
Well, they had 11 players total that played in the World Baseball Classic. And I know Sammy Palazzo in spring training, I was talking to him, and he said he was bringing guys on the road to play spring training games and was getting a lot of gruff from the spring training site saying, hey, you got to bring more stars on the road. He goes, I have no stars. They're all playing in the World Baseball Classic. So point well taken by Duquette. Probably makes a lot of sense that they've gotten off to the slow start because of that. But they also have a lot of young players also.
And Glavine strikes out, and I think that was part of his point, is that a lot of his young players were in the World Baseball Classic, including a guy like Loewen.
Well, Loewen throws that ball right by Glavine. Loewen, in fact, in the World Baseball Classic, pitched 3 2/3 of relief when Canada beat the United States.
So 1 out and nobody on. And here's Reyes, who didn't play much in the World Baseball Classic, but it certainly didn't seem to set him back a whole lot. And that's the thing about it. You know, every team had a few players who went, as I said, back to Loewen, and he throws out Reyes. And you almost wonder whether there's something of a built-in excuse there if your team gets off to a slow start. But I think the point is very well taken about having younger players who really need spring training more being absent for such a period of time.
And you can see Baltimore, which has had a storied past, but not recently.
And that's the other side of it as well, is that you've got a team that's trying to build something and trying to build with the younger players, and perhaps that makes it a more legitimate concern, having had all those guys miss that time. Here's Eli Marrero, who had an infield hit his first trip, and he takes a strike.
You know, one advantage, though, that Reyes has played for the World Baseball Classic, played for Manny Acta, and I'm sure that Wooly made it known to Manny, you make sure he gets enough work, even though he wasn't playing.
I mean, the Mets had Juaner Sanchez go to the Classic, and he didn't allow a run the first 6 weeks of the season. So 0-2 to Marrero.
Baseball is a game that if you want to, you can find an excuse anywhere.
Right.
To why you get off to a slow start, why you get off to a quick start, all those things. I think basically, you know, got to play the game. They're playing a tough division. You know that with the Baltimore Orioles. That's probably has a lot more to do with their slow start than anything else. When you're playing the Red Sox and Blue Jays and Yankees a lot, you're going to have a tough start.
And the Mets will get up close and personal with the elite of the American League East next week. They go to Toronto, Boston, and to Yankee Stadium after they finish this homestand. And Marrero takes it high, 2-2. As we take a look at today's pitcher's high speed, brought to you by Verizon Online DSL, now at a great low price. Passing lane on the left. Travel lane on the right.
That's right, the Autobahn on the left.
2-2 to Marrero. And he takes just inside 3-2. Although it's Sunday, so you get a lot of 40 miles an hour in the left lane.
Saying you're having a little problem with weekend drivers in New York?
What I'm saying is that old-fashioned turn Sunday driver, it's not a misnomer. 3-2 to Marrero, and he takes ball 4. So Loewen trying to come inside to Marrero, missing with balls 3 and 4, and issues his first walk of the day. So the Mets have the tying run aboard with 2 down, and Beltran coming up. Carlos still looking for his first hit in this series. It's just amazing. You have a road trip like Carlos had where you just couldn't get him out. And now 3 games at home, he can't scratch.
And even when he was making outs, especially in Philadelphia, they were hard hit balls.
Ball 1 to Beltran. Carlos flied to center his first time up today. 53 runs batted in for Beltran. That's 6th in the National League. Mets have 3 players with 50 or more RBIs. Beltran, Delgado, and Wright, all with 50 or more. And we're not close to halfway through this season. Marrero with good speed at first. Conine holds him on there. 1-2 to Beltran. Now that is stunning.
Yes.
You know, a lot of times when there's a disparity between home and road, you chalk it up to coincidence. But that's a big disparity. Marrero runs. Throw by Lopez, not in time, and Eli Marrero has his first stolen base as a Met, his 4th of the year.
Well, it was a good jump by Marrero. Inside of Beltran. That's a tough pitch to throw for Javy Lopez. Got to get centered, back over the plate and make that throw. Marrero went on first move by Adam Loewen, taking advantage of the inexperience.
We always say about lefties, Ricky Henderson used to say lefties are either impossible to run on or the easiest pitchers to run on. And Eli found that rather easy against Loewen. So now a base hit could tie it for New York, down a run in the 3rd. On 2-2, Beltran hits the breaking ball in the air. Conine hoping for room. Staggers, can't get it. Fan of the front row couldn't catch it either. But at least he got a glove on it.
Well, Conine staring up into that sun. Didn't really know where that padding was. Sometimes you try to get there and then look back, but very tough ball. Going over your shoulder. That's the toughest play probably for a first baseman.
Speaking of padding, do you see Dave Roberts get hurt last night in Anaheim? The bottom of that low fan padded. Beltran pulls it foul. He hit his knee right on the concrete. You wonder, I mean, in this day and age now that almost every fence is padded, and I would make an exception for Wrigley Field because you can't pad the brick. But why would any part of any fence not be padded?
It makes no sense, especially with the money that you're paying athletes today. You want to do everything you can to try to protect them, keep them in the lineup.
They're saying it's just a bruise for Roberts, but he was down for a long time.
You know, you're talking about Beltran getting off that, that 217 at home. A lot of that was the first 12 out of the 15 games for the Mets was at home, and Beltran started very slowly. But you got to think that maybe coming off the last season, he was trying too hard early in the season to get off to a quick start, and going on the road helped him.
On 2-2, he pulls the breaking ball foul.
I mean, let's face it, last year he had a difficult year, not only with injuries, but trying to adapt to New York with a huge contract, and probably felt that this year was going to be the year he's going to get off to a quick start. Heard some booing in the first few games of the season, and I think that definitely affected him. He's a very sensitive person, Carlos Beltran, but he's turned it around now an MVP candidate.
On 2-2, Beltran pulls it a long way into that mezzanine section, but out in front of the fastball.
Gary, how about this soap opera in Yankee Stadium as you see Carlos Beltran? That was gone, but could not stay back. As Javy Lopez goes out to talk to Adam Loewen. How about that soap opera at Yankee Stadium with the booing of A-Rod and people talking about why doesn't Derek Jeter tell the fans to give A-Rod a break?
That's ridiculous.
It's so silly.
That whole thing's ridiculous. But the thing about A-Rod is, going back to his days in Texas, even the people in Texas said, he's a numbers guy. He'll run up a lot of numbers, but not necessarily the best clutch hitter in the world. And that was always A-Rod's reputation. This is nothing new in New York. Yes. Billy Wagner getting in his early work, preparing for his later work.
Just in, Wagner is now the long man.
I've never seen a closer do this before, and he does it regularly now.
I guess he just does not want to sit for 2.5 hours without staying loose.
3-2 now to Beltran, who's had himself try to turn it back.
Which I don't think is a horrible idea as long as you're just getting, 10, 12 tosses in just to keep the arm kind of well oiled.
This will be the 10th pitch of the at-bat coming up with Wright on deck. Beltran trying to wear out Loewen. 3-2 on the way. Ball 4. So after Loewen retired the first two here in the third, he walked Marrero, and now a 10-pitch walk to Beltran, and David Wright will have a crack with 2 men on. Taking a look at the Air Canada upcoming schedule. 4 with the Reds coming up here at Shea. The Reds are having themselves a tough homestand right now. They're playing the White Sox today. They're 2-7 on that homestand so far after throwing away a game last night. But they are still a formidable team. Mets will miss Aaron Harang, who's pitching today, but they'll face Bronson Arroyo, who's been the best starter for the Reds, tomorrow night. So here is Wright, who's worn out lefties this year, had a base hit his first time up. And Loewen moves him back.
Well, this is what we were talking about. Flashes of brilliance. Has a second inning where he strikes out 2 and goes through the lineup like it's nothing, and then gets now here into the third, kind of loses his command. It's important, though, for the Met hitters to not go out of the strike zone when he's going through this tough period.
You saw no intent in moving right off the plate?
I don't think he has good enough to control to move right off the plate. I think he's trying to throw strikes and get ahead.
There's what Wright has done against lefties with his base hit his first time up over 400. 2 on and 2 out. Mets down 1-0 in the third. And David bangs one slowly. And Loewen with a low throw, but picked out by Conine, and that retires the side. So Adam Loewen able to work around a couple of 2-out walks to keep it 1-0 Baltimore. New York Mets baseball is brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. America runs on Dunkin'. Part of the big crowd here at Shea on Father's Day. Hazy, hot, humid afternoon. Orioles with a 1-0 lead, and Melvin Mora trying to bunt his way on, and he will do so. Deadened that ball beautifully, caused a little confusion between Glavine and Castro, and Mora has a bunt hit.
Well, Phil Mickelson couldn't make this ball dance as well as Melvin Mora just did there. Gets us off on the end of the bat. Pops up a little bit. Glavine gives way to Castro because he knew it was going to back up, but no play for either one of them. Glavine, one of the best fielding pitchers you'll see. Has to be a good bunt to get through him.
David Wright and Melvin Mora are 1-2 in the majors for hits among third basemen, and they now each have one today. And Miguel Tejada takes ball 1. Tejada drove a double to left center and scored the only run of this game in the second inning. And Tejada fouls it back. We mentioned the consecutive game streak for Tejada, now at 989, 7th longest streak in history. Our friends at the Elias Sports Bureau did some calculating and figured that if Tejada wants to set the club record for the Orioles, you know that guy named Ripken?
Yeah.
July of 2016 is when he'd break it. He's got to go 10 more years of playing every day. And he's got the 7th longest streak in history. And what does that say about the monumental nature of Cal's record?
Well, it just puts Ripken's feat in perspective. Just amazing.
3-1 to Tejada. I don't know about you, but I don't think Miggy's going to make it.
No, he's not going to make it. And the hitting coach now for the Arizona Diamondbacks, Mike Aldrete, he was with the Angels at the time when Cal broke that record. He said that was the greatest day he'd ever had in baseball, and he sat on the bench. But just watching that event transpire.
Tejada lifts it to center, and Beltran back. 1 away. Mora tags at first. He's going to try, and the throw not in time. Good base running by Mora to tag up with Beltran retreating in center field.
Well, if Beltran could have got back there and was moving forward, if he could have ran back and been moving forward, I don't think Mora would have tagged up. But as soon as he saw, see, he's going back to tag, as soon as he sees Beltran backing up, he knows that he's not going to be able to get enough on the throw to get him at second. Nice base running by Melvin Mora, who has great baseball instincts, by the way.
You know, that's the first thing we learned about Melvin when he came up with the Mets in 1999, is that he had a tremendous feel for the game. Here's Javy Lopez taking a strike from his former battery mate. I mean, anybody who was watching the Mets in the postseason in 1999 remembers the two incredible throws that Mora made from the outfield. The one against the Diamondbacks here at Shea to throw out Jay Bell in the 8th inning. That was the game Todd Pratt hit the memorable home run. And then in the 15-inning game against the Braves in Game 5, throwing out, I believe it was Keith Lockhart at the plate, throwing him out by about 20 feet, picking the ball up, going toward the line on a wet outfield in the rain. I mean, Mora he knows how to play the game. 1-2 to Lopez, and who better to have a big day on Father's Day than Melvin Mora, father of quintuplets. Wow. I mean, I had twins, and that was a handful.
I'm speechless.
I can't even conceive. Well, maybe that's the wrong word. Of having quintuplets, and Lopez down looking.
A little too much information there, Gary.
Second strikeout for Glavine.
Well, good pitch by Tommy Glavine. Fastball inside, freezes Javy Lopez. And with that strikeout, Glavine has now passed Louis Tiant to move into 34th place on the strikeout list all by himself. Just ties him up. Overhead cam says that pitch is in, but Glavine, with those years, sometimes gets a little bit of break, even with the Questec umpires.
Here's Corey Patterson, who takes ball one. By the way, this season your Tri-State Hyundai dealers and the WB11 team up to help kids strike out cancer. Every strikeout recorded by a Mets pitcher will add $100 to the Hope and Heroes Children's Cancer Fund. If you'd like to help, call 212-305-1420 for more information. And Patterson lines it into the glove of a leaping Franco. Well, Father Time with the vertical leap. The side retired, and that one saved a run. Franco keeps it a 1-0 game. Well, the Mets continue to struggle for offense, trying to get something started here in the bottom of the 4th against rookie left-hander Adam Loewen. Mets scored 78 runs in 10 games on their road trip, but just 5 runs in the first 21 innings of this homestand. And Julio Franco, who made that great grab to end the top of the 4th, takes ball 1. I didn't know Julio could get up that high.
He can do anything. You kidding me? No, Adam Loewen watching. Sorry, Gary. Adam Loewen watching him pitch. He reminds me of the old Angels and Indians pitcher Chuck Finley a little bit. The way he throws, a little across his body, good hard fastball. Finley, of course, his changeup was a split finger that he used to strike out all those batters.
And Loewen falls behind on Franco, 3-0.
Just a real simple motion, which you try to do with bigger pitchers. You don't want to have too many moving parts. Kind of throws across his body, straight over the top. Very Finley-like.
3-1 to Julio, who grounded into a force play his first time up. Chris Woodward playing second base today on deck, and then Ramon Castro. Mets going with their irregulars on Sunday. Broken bat grounder back to Loewen, who's fielded his position well today, and he throws out Franco for the first out. It's time to check in with Chris Cotter. How are you, Chris?
I'm doing just great, Gary. And, you know, I want to thank Charlie Samuels, the equipment manager for the Mets, for giving me this light blue ribbon. And if you'll notice, many of the players, both Mets and Orioles, are wearing these today, and also the light blue wristbands. Now, if you remember on Mother's Day, a lot of players used pink bats for breast cancer awareness. Well, today it's light blue for prostate cancer awareness, and they'll also do something interesting in every game in Major League Baseball today. They're going to have a 6th inning stretch just to promote prostate cancer awareness. I think it's a great thing.
No question about it. So many men diagnosed with prostate cancer, many more who are not and aren't aware. And the more awareness and the more men get themselves checked out, the better. And certainly a great cause to keep people informed about the dangers of prostate cancer. Baseball's doing a terrific job with that. 1-1 to Woodward. And Loewen very upset with himself after that last heave. 2-1. Woodward struck out his first time up. Chris now 0 for his last 11. hitting at .261 on the year. And Loewen just conveniently wild so far today.
It's a good point you bring up, Gary. Sometimes a guy can be all over the place, and this one at Woodward's head, almost over his head. And then the young pitcher, the next pitch he'll throw is on the corner, and you're like, how can he do that? It walks Woodward here, though.
Third walk given up by Loewen in a span of 5 batters. He was able to work through 2-out trouble in the third after a couple of walks. Leo has shed the cap on a hot day. I can commiserate, Leo. Well, here's Castro, who flied out his first time up. Just trying to get something going. And again, Loewen up and in.
Well, I know if I was the starting pitcher for the Mets in this game, I saw this business by Loewen, I'd be too happy.
Well, not only is he, missing inside, but he's missed head high to 2 batters in this inning, and that's very different from being, chest high or below.
Well, you'd have a lot of excuses saying, hey, he's a young pitcher, he didn't have his control. Listen, this is the major leagues. If you're going to throw inside and you can't pitch inside other than someone's head, then you probably shouldn't be here.
So Leo trying to calm him down. Hey, gas prices got you down. How does gas for free sound? Every weekday this summer, the WB11 is giving away $50 worth of gas for free. Log on to WB11.com for details on how watching Commuter Cast could put gas in your tank and help you spend less time in traffic, too. So 1-0 to Castro, and we'll see if Loewen can get his control settled down. A look in on Woodward, who was practically standing on the bag.
I've noticed, though, Gary, from the stretch, he has trouble with his control much more than he does from the windup.
And he's got a very long delivery out of that stretch, too. The Mets have already stolen 1 base today. We'll see if Woodward would try and take advantage. And Castro lines it to left, but right there is Matos, 2 away. And that's the hardest hit ball for a Met today, but Castro denied for the 2nd out. So Lastings Millage will come up in this week's WB11. Mets poll question asks, should Lastings Millage be here to stay? Well, 29% said yes, 71% said no. Log on to WB11.com to vote on next week's poll. And I guess the day of decision may be Thursday, because that's when Cliff Floyd is eligible to come off the disabled list.
Surprised by that?
Yeah, I am.
I am too. I thought it would be closer to 50-50 if there was any vote on Lastings.
Lastings struck out his first time up. Well, one thing about Lastings Millage, he has proved to be a lightning rod in his first 3 weeks in the big leagues. Clearly an extraordinarily talented player. Pulls one foul, 0-2.
Extraordinary talented player, but I think still needs a little more seasoning. He's got a quick bat. He's very aggressive, but I think the pitchers are starting to use that against him, throwing some balls out of the strike zone. See, Loewen doesn't have much from move to first. That'll be something that he'll try to improve upon as his career gets underway.
He's walked 3, he's struck out 3, allowed just 2 hits. Woodward takes off, and Millage fouls it away. So Woodward running on 0-2.
You know, they've got him red already. Look at first movement. Woody's going.
And it's taken a lot of time for Loewen to get that ball to home plate.
You know, one of the reasons you'll run too, it's 0-2 count on Millage. Even if you get thrown out, Millage starts with a new count. He's a good leadoff kind of hitter.
And they pitch out this time, but Woody's not running. You know, I like that play higher up in the batting order.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's a great play when your number 8 hitter's up. You know, if you got your number 3 hitter at the plate with an 0-2 count and 2 outs, you say, okay, well, save him a fresh at bat. Loewen ahead 1-2, and he misses upstairs. One thing the Mets have done with Loewen is they've made him at least work hard. He's up to 77 pitches now, working in the 4th inning. So while he's looked awfully tough, it's going to be hard for him to survive much past 5 innings with this kind of a pitch count. He has not worked a full 6 innings yet as a starter. And Millage pops this one foul, and Conine hoping for a play, but this one's back in the crowd. So Millage with a long turn at bat. The last inning, Beltran had a 10-pitch at bat. And Glavine waits on deck. And throw in the fact that it's a very warm afternoon, and you got Adam Loewen, a kid who grew up in Canada, not used to pitching in that much hot weather. So you wonder about stamina issues as well.
Yeah, the hot weather, and also when you haven't gone into the 7th inning yet, you've thrown a lot of pitches, but you haven't. I mean, he's going to be well into 120 or so if you wanted to go 7 or 8 innings.
And Woodward is picked off. Conine running him and puts on the tag. So Woodward was set to take off, and that time Loewen showed a move, and so that retires the side. And the Mets through 4, still being shut out 1-0. The Toyota line score shows pretty much what it showed the last couple of nights. The Mets offense going into brownout ever since returning to Shea Stadium. New York Mets baseball brought to you by sipinstead.com. Go to sipinstead.com and learn how to sip instead. Here's Luis Matos lifting the first pitch down the right field line, foul and out of play. As we start the 5th inning, Matos getting the start in left field today. And Ronnie, this is a guy, when he first came up with the Orioles, they thought he was going to be a star, and it just hasn't worked out that way.
Just has not been able to produce in a consistent way. They thought he would have the power. He's very fast, good fielder. Just has not been able to be consistent.
1-1 to Matos, and he's had a lot of injury problems over the last 4 or 5 years that have held him back. He's had a shoulder problem this year that cost him some time on the disabled list. So it's just been hard for Matos to get his career going. 1-2 the count. And he pauses to discuss it with Paul Schreiber. Never a good idea when you turn around like that.
Well, I think he had a legitimate grief there. That ball looked down from Glavine.
Glavine comes inside, and you knew that was going to happen. You turn around and talk to the umpire on one pitch, you're not getting the call on the next one. 3rd strikeout for Glavine.
Well, this is a good pitch here. Inside fastball. You see it goes right over the knees. Let's see upstairs whether it catches the plate. Well, we've seen already that the home plate umpire, Paul Schreiber, likes that pitch inside the right-handers. He's called a few already, and he just tossed someone.
Well, you threw Matos or somebody else out of the game, but it must have been Matos, because now Sam Palazzo is going to say his piece. Now Matos started this by turning around. You know, you can argue a call, Ronnie, but when you turn around, it's never a good idea.
The key is you just stand outside of the batter's box. You look straight ahead or at the pitcher, and you just voice your concern. Hey, come on, Paul, that ball's low. You're better than that. That is not a strike. As long as you don't turn, you can do anything you want. But then he went back to the bench and yelled and screamed at Schreiber, and most of the umpires now, Gary, you've seen it, they will not take a second of grief. If you keep arguing balls and strikes, you're out of the game.
Well, it's the second time it's happened to an Oriole in this series. Friday night, Ramon Hernandez got called out in a flash by Nana DeMuth. And ejected. There was strike 2.
That's where he turns around. And once you give that kind of body language, you're letting everyone in the stadium know that you have a problem with that call. And umpires hate to be shown up that way. And that pitch was a good pitch there. We'll see overhead. He's been calling that pitch inside. And after you argue to the umpire, you're probably going to have that call.
Here's Nick Markakis, and he takes a strike.
Although, Gary, if I'm the manager, I'm upset with Schreiber, but I'm also upset at Matos. You know, you don't get a chance to play that much. Here you get a start, and you can't even stay in the game.
And the curveball from Glavine, after the first one we've seen today, and it's 0-2.
Just a nice one from Tommy. Just starting at the right shoulder of Markakis, breaking over the plate.
And he gets the outside corner, strike 3 call. Don't say anything, Nick. You're already down an outfielder.
What a nice pitch this was. Nice combination of pitches also. Curveball and then surprised him on that outside corner. See that grip, 2 fingers on the ball. You know it's going to be a fastball. And just paints right in the middle of Castro's body. See him sitting right off that outside corner? When it hits the catcher in the middle of his body, a lot of times you'll get that call.
So 2 out and nobody on, and Adam Loewen takes low. Loewen grounded out to first base in his first big league at bat. I wonder how he hit in Little League when he was 6'4" and 180 at age 12.
People taking their kids off the field. That's what happened.
I wouldn't want to be the pitcher, I'll tell you that. Him hitting against me? I don't care if he couldn't hit a lick. Up the middle, and Woodward's there. And Glavine has himself his second 1-2-3 inning of the day. Handles the lower third of the batting order. We're halfway through, still 1-0 O's. Hey, Mets fans, vote on Mets.com or LosMets.com to help the Mets get to the 2006 All-Star Game in Pittsburgh. Races are tight, so vote now and vote often. Log on to Mets.com or LosMets.com to vote for your Mets All-Stars. Voting ends Thursday, June 29th. Ed Rogers will take over in left field after Luis Matos was ejected for arguing a call third strike. So Rogers makes his first appearance in this series. And Lastings Millage, who was at the plate when Chris Woodward was picked off to end the 4th, will get a fresh turn at bat, leading off in the bottom of the 5th. Facing Adam Loewen, who's thrown 77 pitches already, and we'll see just how he fares as this afternoon wears on. Goes the curveball for a strike to Millage. He did not unveil that curveball early in this game. And the scouts say it is a big-time plus pitch for him. Misses with a fastball, 1-1.
Well, I think what happens with all young players like Lastings or pitchers especially, Mazzone probably tries to simplify it early in the game since they haven't seen him. Just make sure it throws strikes with that live fastball.
And Millage lifts one foul. 1-2. Now there's my brother in appendectomy. Good to have Xavier Nady back. Played last night for Norfolk, didn't get a whole lot of sleep, and so Willie didn't put him in the lineup here today, but he's ready to go. To second base, and Roberts is there. One away. Father's Day 2006. And can you count the dads? They are all over the place. What do you get, Dad, for Father's Day? Bring him to the ball game.
It's not only fathers with their young children. I've seen a couple of fathers with their sons like in their 30s or 40s, and to me, I would love to bring my father on a day like today out to the ballpark. Although he's seen a lot of games here.
1-1 to Glavine. Well, the thing about baseball is, with fathers and kids, and fathers and sons especially, there are times in your life, as Glavine takes a strike, where you can't agree with your father about anything. And yet, I've heard this from so many different people, where baseball is the means of communication. And Glavine goes down swinging. In other words, if you can't talk to your father about anything else, you can always sit and watch a baseball game together.
Yeah, it's a common ground for you, especially in your teenage years. But I know that when you're younger, it's such a rite of passage. I know it was for me to go to a Fenway Park for me and go to the game and get your figurine.
Two out and nobody on. Here's Jose Reyes. And how about teaching your son to score?
Well, my dad taught me how to score. It's one of the great joys. I really enjoyed it. I taught my 12-year-old how to score, and he's doing it right now near us. And it's a great thing to do that. I remember the night before as Reyes grounds a base hit. Finally, a base runner for the Mets.
So a 2-out single for Reyes, and we'll see if the Mets can parlay that into something more.
Reyes from the right side has a nice, short, compact swing. Melvin Moore had to play in with the threat of a bunt from Jose Reyes, and that way he was able to get that by him for the base hit.
Reyes has now hit in 6 straight games, and off what we've seen from Loewen so far, it's a lead pipe cinch. Reyes will be running at some point here with Eli Marrero the batter. Marrero getting the start in right field today, and he's been aboard twice with an infield hit and a walk, and he has stolen a base. Conine holding against Reyes. And a slide step this time from Loewen. Ball 1. It's a little different look from Loewen. Do you think young pitchers are taught that slide step earlier in their careers than they used to?
Well, it's something that usually it takes a while to get, because you sometimes lose your command and control as he goes back to the traditional.
And Marrero fouls it off 1-1.
But he's, you know, Bedard looks, Loewen looks a lot more polished than I thought he was going to look. I think he has a bright future. I didn't know his fastball was as live as it is, especially up in the strike zone. This is a guy who could strike out 9, 10, 11 a game. That's how good his stuff is.
Reyes not getting a huge lead, and Loewen checks in on him. We'll say leading the majors in stolen bases with 29, one ahead of Corey Patterson, who was thrown out earlier in this game by Ramon Castro. Mets down 1-0, bottom of the 5th. And again, Reyes not with a very big lead. And Marrero foul tips it 1-2. So Adam Loewen staying in control of this game with Carlos Beltran on deck, but again the caveat, he's up to 90 pitches working on a hot day in the 5th inning. And to manage just 3 singles off Loewen. And interesting in the 5th inning of the game to see Melvin Moore guarding the line as though it were the 8th inning. Look where he's playing.
Very strange position. Look at that hole between third and short.
So a lot of holes for Marrero to work with on both sides of the infield, with Reyes being held on, and the pitch out comes to nothing. 2-2.
Well, we've seen that Loewen pitches in a lot, so they're thinking that he gets a cutter in or a fastball in. Marrero, if he turns on, it's going to be down the line or foul.
2-2 to Marrero. Reyes runs, and it hits Marrero. So Marrero gets nicked, and he's aboard for the 3rd time, and the Mets have 2 men aboard for Beltran.
Well, he's had a lot of balls shoulder or head high. This one catches the uniform of Eli Marrero.
Those are the ones that don't hurt. No nerve endings in the uniform shirt.
Again, the Mets have another rally, albeit with 2 outs.
Well, they had the same opportunity in the 3rd inning. Walks to Marrero and Beltran, but Wright grounded out. Now Reyes and Marrero aboard for Beltran, who had a 10-pitch walk his last time up. still looking for his first hit in this series. And in a timely spot now, down 1-0 in the 5th. 2 out and 2 on. And Carlos takes a strike.
I just have a feeling at some point, because of his lack of control, that Loewen will center one of those high fastballs right into Beltran's hand. It's a grip by Adam
There go
Loewen.
the runners. The pitch high and no throw. It's a double steal. Nobody even bothered covering. Laura did not move into third, even though Lopez was getting set to chuck it. Number 30 for Reyes and number 5 for Marrero.
Probably asking why didn't Mora move. It's because he wants to hold his ground in case Beltran was swinging there. Did not want to give up the base hit. And Reyes had it easily anyways.
So now a base hit could give the Mets the lead. 1-1 to Beltran. Mets are 0 for 2 with runners in scoring position today. 2 for 19 in this series. Two and 1. First base is open, but you've got David Wright, the Mets' best hitter against left-handed pitching, standing on deck. Beltran's second in the National League in slugging percentage. There you see his numbers with 2 out and runners in scoring position. On 2 and 1, he takes inside, and that hit him. And the bases are loaded. So Loewen clunks back-to-back hitters. And that one caught a little more of Beltran than the prior one did of Marrero.
Well, we talked about it before. He can be sailing along, and the next thing you know, not even close. Again inside, catches part of the uniform. It looks like it might have caught him on the side also.
So now the base is loaded with 2 out. David Wright coming up. The Orioles bullpen is active. Leo Mazzone heads out toward the mound and will try and be of counsel to Loewen. While the Orioles bullpen gets busy. Well, Loewen getting right toward 100 pitches now, working in the 5th inning on a hot day. Chris Britton, the right-hander, whom we saw on Friday night, up in the bullpen for Baltimore.
Well, Mazzone's been out there before, and I think for a young pitcher, what he's trying to do is, one, give him a little bit of a rest. Has a lot of pitches now here in the 5th inning. He also wants to tell him certain mechanical things that'll get him back to where he was before. Right now, watching him, he's really overcompensating, keeping that front shoulder closed, which is making him throw the ball up and in for the right-handed hitters. And also, I think what happens to young pitchers, they get people on base and they get nerves, where it makes it hard for them to throw strikes.
Mets in need of a big hit. Bases loaded, 2 out. And Wright lifts one to deep left field. Back goes Rogers. Back near the wall. It's out of here! David Wright with a grand slam, and the Mets go up 4-1. Need a big hit? There's the right man for the job. The fans get their curtain call, and Adam Loewen's day is done. This call to the bullpen brought to you by Singular Wireless, raising the bar. David Wright with his 3rd career grand slam, and the Mets never needed one more.
Well, after hitting 2 batters in a row, Loewen felt like he had to get ahead, throw a strike. He did, and David Wright was ready. You know, that's harder than you think as you see that fastball grip. David Wright has to see two players hit before him. And what do you do when you go up there? Are you thinking that I got to take one because he's wild? Well, Wright wasn't. He was ready. A long grand slam gets the Mets ahead.
This inning began with 2 out and nobody on. But Reyes singled. Marrero and Beltran were both hit by pitches. And then after Leo Mazzone visited the mound, and a lot of hitters will tell you first pitch after the pitching coach, look for a fastball, and David did. 1-2 to Franco as Chris Britton now on the mound for the Orioles.
Well, Britton's only given up runs in 3 of his 19 outings. 6'3", 278 pounds. Big man on the mound for the Orioles.
And he gets Franco swinging to end the inning. But a big hitting and, more importantly, one big swing for the New York Mets, who had been lacking the big hit in this series. And they found one in a hurry. Third career grand slam for Wright has given the Mets a 4-1 lead after 5. Now Tom Glavine has himself a lead for the first time today, in search of his 8th straight victory and career win number 285. Top of the batting order, Brian Roberts takes ball 1. Roberts has one of the 4 hits for the Orioles, doubled over the third base bag his last time up. And the changeup for a strike, 1-1.
You know, Gary, it's nice to see good things happening for Glavine, who had some tough luck the last 2 years here in New York. He's had a win when he's left the game when they've scored. He's had a win when he's given up 6 runs.
1-2 to Roberts.
And now in a game that looked like the Mets weren't going to get punched through Adam Loewen, they finally get the grand slam from Wright.
And when you go back in this game and look at the at-bats, what the Mets did do well against Loewen is they made him work hard. Got that pitch count up, and you don't know how much of a factor that was in that one implosion. 2-2 to Roberts.
Absolutely. When you have a guy work that hard, a big guy especially in this heat, well, that fastball might have been a couple miles an hour slower.
And how many big hits has he had this year? Popped up. Woodward out. Marrero in. And Marrero, who's been all over the place in the field today, puts it away. Let's check in with Chris Connor. Chris?
So much excitement around this side.
Oh, we'll check back in with Chris.
Sorry about that.
Oh, there he
I'm
is.
here. Sorry.
Oh, welcome.
John and I were having a discussion about the team, and he's one of those guys when the ball goes up in the air, don't talk to me. I got to watch the game. So, John, how are you? How long have you been a Mets fan?
I've been a Mets fan since 1967, 1968. Have suffered through many things. This is one of the most exciting Mets teams I've seen. That is unacceptable.
It's just a base hit. It's just a base hit.
You will pay for your insolence. It's all right.
Now, when you started the Daily Show, did you ever have any idea that it would end up being as popular as it has?
Well, I've been fired from so many of the other jobs that I barely had an idea that I'd be able to stick around for 6 months. So no, I was very happy that it went well.
It has gone well, but it's more than just a satirical look at politics. I mean, you're actually you're actually a place where young people, I think, go for news on politics. Did you ever think it would get to that point?
Really? Have you seen the show? Because it's really not that good.
I have seen it, and it's very good, by the way.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Forget about you. Congratulations to you guys on the Sports Net. I'm watching SNY all the time, getting the good in-depth reports. Finally seeing that Ron Darling has been able to keep his girlish figure all these years. Keith Hernandez as well. It's exciting for me. You know, because they hang out with Staub. You don't know what they're eating.
They're not missing many meals, though. You know that.
What I'm saying, La Grande Orange is cooking them up all kinds of things.
How about this team, though? Is this the most exciting team you've seen in a long time? Just in terms of top to bottom, the order, the rotation, the staff, everything.
Andy Chavez, even that, look at this. Even Melvin Mora, ex-Met, contributing a base hit. I mean, I take credit for that. I think the Mets should take credit for that.
Melvin Mora does pick up a base hit. So first and second now with one out here in the top of the sixth inning.
Get out of it. Glavine understands.
Well, that's what I was about to say to you.
He's teasing them.
You know, just because we almost had the space hit here to start the inning in the right field, and you were getting a little upset about that, Glavine's solid. I mean, Glavine's going to get him out of this jam.
Guys, he threw a 68-mile-an-hour changeup, buckled the guy. That's experience right there.
Just real quick on
He doesn't even throw a real baseball. He throws like a Nerf ball.
the rosin bat.
He's got all the tricks.
When you looking back at the Daily Show again, did it take you a while to get the respect of some of the pundits in Washington, if you will, that you had a legitimate show on politics that they should be a part of, etc.?
When we get their respect, I will let you know. As far as I know, that may not have happened yet. But
I've seen plenty of them on your show, and they wouldn't come on your show if they didn't think it was legit, would they?
Dude, those guys are like encyclopedia salesmen. They'll go anywhere they think a cold lead is. They'll knock on any door in the neighborhood. Most politicians and pundits, they like being on the TV. Oh, wow. By the way, did you see that kid grab the fly ball off the carom?
I missed it. Was it solid?
I'll tell you. It was Jeffrey Meyer solid.
You don't miss a thing here in this stadium, though, do you?
Oh, this is truly the ugliest stadium I've ever been in, and yet it is my favorite. But this rivals only the old Veterans Stadium for just sheer. I mean, look at that apple. Look at the home run apple. Yes!
As Glavine gets the strikeout on Tejada. Now, one final thing.
What happened to Glavine this year that he's striking so many guys out?
Just making the adjustment. You know, he's a great pitcher, a crafty lefty, if you will.
Tell you something. Glavine, I think, may be part Quest Tech. He may be part human, part Quest Tech.
You talked about being a Mets fan since '67. Obviously, you have great memories of Mets games and baseball with your father, don't you?
Yes. Coming out here in the old days, you'd come out here for Family Day, take pictures of Tommy Agee and McAndrew and Gary Gentry and all those guys, and Cleon Jones, and you'd see the Mets trade Amos Otis for Joe Foy, and it would crush your spirit. You'd come right back, and just the best.
Are you going to miss this stadium when it's gone in 2009, the new stadium?
I will not. I will not miss it in a heartbeat. I think the next one. I do hope they bring the apple, though.
I'm sure they will.
How is it possible that a fake apple actually looks like a real apple that's been left out? Look at that thing.
Ripe.
That's real mold. that fake apple has real mold.
Gary and Ron, we're going to keep talking baseball here, not another second about politics. You guys take over the game.
Gary and Ron to get to work.
Chris, that is one genuine Met fan. Thank you very much, Chris and John. That's a funny guy. I got to see Jon Stewart on stage doing a stand-up act a few months ago. He is just hilarious. Javy Lopez with a 2-1 count with 2 on and 2 on. And Glavine gets him to roll over on the change, but it's foul ball. Right, stepping on the bag just in case, but it's a foul ball, 2-2. The funniest thing during Stewart's stand-up show, it's obviously a little more R-rated than what he does on television. And somebody brought an 8-year-old kid sitting in the front row, and John wasn't sure exactly whether he should go ahead and do his off-color routine or not. But he handled it about as well as anybody possibly could have, just kind of shielding the youngster from the stuff that he probably shouldn't have heard.
Just make fun of the parents for bringing the 8-year-olds.
That's exactly what he did. 2-2 to Lopez, and he just missed the inside corner. And a full count to Javy. Glavine trying to work his way through the 6th.
Glavine's done a great job of pitching inside. Pushes Javy off the plate. That little cutter inside.
Javy never caught a Glavine pitch there, did he? And it's lined to left field, a base hit. Conan around third. He'll come in to score. Millich's throw cut off. It's an RBI single for Javy Lopez and slices the Mets lead to 4-2. So Lopez has his second hit against the guy he used to catch.
Well, came in twice, but you see that pitch caught a lot of the plate. Glavine wanted that in about a couple more inches, and Javy Lopez with that quick bat is able to hit that to left field.
So the Orioles have bunched 3 hits here in the 6th to play to run. Now the tying runs aboard for Corey Patterson. Patterson hit a searing line drive his last time up, and Julio Franco denied him with a great leaping grab. Strike 1. Patterson 1 for 10 in this series. Mora at second, Lopez at first, and 2 down. 4-2 New York, 6th inning. And Patterson lunging, fouls it away. Ed Rogers, who took over in left field for Luis Matos after he was ejected, out on deck. Glavine about to throw his 88th pitch of the day. And it's a base hit down the right field line. Mora will score. To third goes Lopez. It's an RBI single for Corey Patterson, and now the Mets lead down to a skinny run at 4-3. So after David Wright gave the Mets the lead with the grand slam, Glavine unable to hang up a 0, and the Orioles right back in it.
You know, Gary, you mentioned before it's a hot, humid, hazy day out here at Shea, and I think Tommy Glavine, even though his pitch count is down, he might be running out of gas right now. Pitches are up in the strike zone. Looks like Willie's going to try to get him through this inning, though.
No action in the Mets bullpen, at least not yet. And here's Rogers batting for the first time in this series. And he pokes one foul. Ed Rogers, another perennial prospect in the Orioles organization who's not quite panned out as expected. Lopez the tying run at third. Patterson at first with 2 out. Patterson leads the American League in stolen bases. Castro's already thrown him out once today. We'll see whether he'd be inclined to try and swipe one here to get that lead run into scoring position. 1-1 to Rogers. Gary Cohen, Ron Darling, Chris Cotter with you from Shea Stadium on Father's Day. Mets trying to salvage the finale of a 3-game series. A David Wright grand slam gave them a 4-1 lead, but the Orioles have come right back with 2 runs here in the 6th. And Tom Glavine trying to nurse a 1-run lead as the bullpen gets busy. Feliciano and Bradford up. 2-1 now to Ed Rogers. Rogers has had just 13 at bats with the Orioles this season. He's been up and down a couple of times. On 2-1, Rogers reaches for it and fouls it off, and it's 2-2. Glavine doing what Glavine has done so well over the years, especially with young hitters, getting them to reach for that changeup.
Yeah, expanding that strike zone. As you can see, Ed Rogers very aggressive on this 2 count. He might be able to go out of the strike zone, Glavine, and get Rogers to go fishing.
Well, Jay Crowd starting a wary round of applause here for Glavine. More fingers crossed than hands being clapped. Glavine has 5 strikeouts today, lifting him past Louis Tiant into 34th place all time. A big strikeout year for Glavine by his standards. He's already had a couple of double-digit strikeout games. 2-2 to Rogers. Can't get him to chase that changeup, and it's 3-2. So now Patterson will be on the move with 3-2 and 2 down.
Oh, a big pitch for Glavine. Might be his last batter if he's not able to retire Rogers. Ramon Castro knows that too. Straight to the changeup, 3-2.
On 3-2, struck him out. So Glavine strikes out Rogers with a changeup, but the Orioles get closer with 2 runs on 4 hits. We go to the bottom of the 6th, 4-3.
This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of Sterling Mats and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of Sterling Mats.
Looking for a few laughs? Then spend some time with the Barones. Twice every weeknight on the WB11. Catch the antics of the family that makes everyone else's look normal. Look for yourself why everybody loves Raymond. Weeknights at 7:30 and 11:30 on the WB11. It is Father's Day. It is June 18, 2006, and that's how the bases are bedecked in light blue, symbolizing the fight for prostate cancer awareness. Tom Glavine glaring after giving up a couple of runs in the top of the inning, and the Mets will try and get him back for him as Chris Woodward leads off. Woody is struck out and walked today, 0 for 1. Trying to fight out of an 0 for 11 hole. And he hits one off the pitcher, Britton, who chases after it and makes the play. Good recovery by Britton after getting drilled by Woodward's line drive, and Britton appears to be just fine.
Well, we mentioned it before. He's a big man, so a big target also. Gets him in the side of the hip and the leg. And very unfortunate for Woodward, that ball bounced straight towards first base. Britton's able to retrieve it and make the play to Conine at first base.
That was a Wally Whitehurst shot. Met fans, this season, the 6th inning means it's time to swing for sandwiches. If the Mets hit a home run this inning, you can log on to WB11.com for your chance to score a $100 gift certificate to Subway. 1-0 to Ramon Castro. Wally Whitehurst got hit by more comebackers than anybody I've ever seen.
He was a sinker ball pitcher, always was facing the hitter, but never had his glove in position.
1-1 to Castro.
That's pretty funny you said that, and I knew exactly what you were talking about. I played with Wally.
He had more imprints of stitches on his legs than any pitcher around. Castro lifts one to right field, hit well. Markakis back near the wall, and it's out of here. Ramon Castro with an opposite field home run, his 3rd of the year. And the Mets get one back. It's 5-3 New York. So the Mets getting the offense working now. Grand slam by Wright in the 5th, and now a solo shot by Castro here in the 6th. And here's Lasting's Millage, and he takes a breaking ball for a strike.
How about this bench for the New York Mets? Castro, every time he plays, he seems to do something positive, not only with his defensive ability, but also offensively.
0-2 to Millage. You know, we were talking with Omar Minaya when he was on with us Friday night about putting together your bench and composing the right group of guys who understand their roles and can create for you in different situations. As Millage takes ball 1. But this is the 2nd straight year that the Mets have gotten extraordinary play out of their bench, and I have to think that the way Willie Randolph has handled these guys has a lot to do with it.
Well, you look at the lineup today. You know, you have Woodward in there, Castro in there.
As Millage goes down swinging for the 2nd out.
Eli Marrero, he's trying to get some at bats. A lot of people would say, hey, how can you do that after losing 2 straight to the Baltimore Orioles? He knows that these guys are useless unless you play them. You can't expect a guy to sit for 10 days and have him in the lineup and expect him to get 2 or 3 hits. It's not going to happen. So he continues to use these guys in such a great way.
Are you a little surprised to see Glavine batting here?
I am. Personally, I felt like he was running out of gas that inning. It's very hot out here today. He hasn't thrown a lot of pitches, but I think that if there was people on base, he might have, Willie Randolph might have batted for him, but he's only thrown 94 pitches, which is not a lot. You should be able to get 1 more inning out of him.
But 94 pitches on a 94-degree day, it's a little different. 2-1 to Glavine.
And maybe because of Aaron Heilman, who's been going through a bad stretch, trying to eke 1 more inning out of Glavine, get the ball into Sanchez's hand for the 8th, Wagner for the 9th.
Also, you've got 8 and 9 in the order coming up. Left-hand hitter Markakis leading off. Maybe that plays into it as well. 2-2 to Glavine. Well, Tommy obviously told Rick Peterson and Willie Randolph that he had something left, and they certainly trust Glavine on that. And he strikes out swinging. 3rd strikeout for Britton, but the Mets get a home run from Ramon Castro to re-extend their lead. Castro hitting his 3rd of the year and going the other way. And so after Wright went deep in the prior inning and the Orioles came back, the Mets now up by a deuce going to the 7th. Be part of the celebration at Shea with Mets season tickets. Prorated packages include postseason ticket purchase options and priority access for season tickets in the new Mets ballpark. To get your season tickets for the rest of 2006, call 718-507-TIXX or go to Mets.com today. And Tom Glavine remaining on for the 7th inning with a 5-3 lead. Nick Markakis leads off, and he takes a strike. And interestingly enough, the pinch hitter on deck for the Orioles is a left-hand batter. That's Howie Clark. Sam Perlazo has 2 right-handed bats on his bench. His #1 catcher, Ramon Hernandez, and Kevin Millar. Interesting he'd send Clark into the on-deck circle.
Well, there used to be some thought 2 or 3 years ago that you could bat left-handers against Glavine because it would take away his changeup, but that's no longer the case, as Glavine will throw his changeup to left-handed hitters.
And the numbers this year are stark. Lefties hitting just 184 against Glavine. Righties 255 coming into today. 1-2 to Markakis. Hit the other way and into the crowd. Markakis has looked very good in this series. A young player who has struggled for the most part this year, but it looks like he's going to be a solid hitter. Two and two.
Yeah, I'm with you, Gary. I like his skills. I like him in center field a lot too. He really did a good job in spring training. Great jump on the ball.
We know he's got a great arm.
He's got a great arm. He's only going to get stronger as he develops.
Just outside of the fastball, and now it's 3-2. Glavine was ahead in the count on Markakis.
Yeah, big hitter here for Glavine to get out to lead off this inning. See Castro trying to pull that back in, but that's about a foot outside.
Glavine hasn't walked anybody today. 3-2 to Markakis. It foul. He's given up 8 hits, but he's kept the ball in the ballpark. Glavine had given up 7 home runs in his last 2 starts, and that had never happened to him before. Of course, he's not pitching in Philadelphia this time. Again, the 3-2. And again, Markakis fouls it away. So if the pitch count was low, Markakis is solving that problem. 8 pitches already in this turn at bat, starting the 7th. Ninth pitch of the at bat is laced down the left field line, and that's an extra base hit for Markakis. And so the Orioles with a leadoff double from Nick Markakis, and that might spell the end of the road for Glavine. Howie Clark announced into the game as the pinch hitter, and we'll see whether Willie's ready to make the move right now. He's got Feliciano and Bradford ready, and with Clark announced, and that's what Willie's waiting for, he'll probably go with Feliciano.
You see Glavine, he's disappointed. Really wanted to try to make it through this inning for the Mets, get the ball in the bullpen deep, but you can see Feliciano and Bradford.
And you have to believe that Glavine probably asked for it, because, you know, with that turn at bat in the bottom of the 6th, he was probably asked if he could go another inning. He probably said yes, and that adds to the disappointment after giving up the leadoff double. This call to the bullpen brought to you by Singular Wireless, raising the bar. Now Tom Glavine in line for his 10th win of the year and his 8th in a row, if the bullpen can make it stand up. Check out the Toyota Interleague scoreboard. The Yankees have taken the lead in the 8th behind Chen-Ming Wang in Washington. The Marlins trying for their 8th straight win and leading Toronto. Dan Uggla with 3 hits today. The White Sox looking to sweep that series from the Reds. The Twins with a Torrey Hunter home run have tied up the Pirates. Ryan Howard a 3-run homer for the Phillies as they try to snap a 6-game losing streak. Texas up on Arizona early, and Cleveland leading Milwaukee in the 3rd. Here's Pedro Feliciano.
Well, Feliciano has done a great job. You see that ERA, but he's gotten some help. Bradford helped him out yesterday's game. 2 runners left on, came in and got an out.
And Howie Clark, the pinch hitter, takes ball 1. That's what Clark did in the minors. In interleague play. 32-year-old minor league veteran, and he lines one past Woodward's glove. And the Orioles have runners at 1st and 3rd. So Sam Perlazo went with Clark against the left-hand pitcher. The Mets brought in another lefty, and sure enough, he got himself a base hit.
Good job of hitting by Clark. This fastball up and away. Just uses his hands, kind of hooks it. You see that grip by Feliciano, just trying to get a strike. Pitch up, just out of the reach of Chris Woodward.
So the tying runs are aboard for the Orioles with nobody out, and the switch hitting Brian Roberts coming up. Roberts 1 for 3 today, doubled as a right-hand batter back in the third. You've got all right-hand hitters to follow, so this is probably Feliciano's last batter. And he misses with the back door. 1-0. Mets were down 1-0 in this game. David Wright's grand slam gave them the lead in the fifth. The Orioles fought back to within a run. Castro homered, and now the Orioles coming right back again. Chopped. Tough play. Reyes will have to go to first as a run comes home. And now it's 5-4. So Roberts drives in a run, and now the tying run at second with 1 out.
Well, that's that little sinker that Feliciano throws, trying to get a ground ball. He did, but this one chopped too high to turn 2. Reyes had to make a fine play, and the speedy Roberts coming across 2 hands. Little shovel throw to first.
So Feliciano has faced his 2 batters, and with Conine and Mora and Tejada all right-hand hitters to follow, it's Chad Bradford's turn to try and clean up. Something that Bradford has done extraordinarily well, as he has been the king of stranding inherited runners. So Feliciano leaves. Bradford will come on. This call to the bullpen brought to you by Singular Wireless, raising the bar.
Totally up, totally down, totally hip, spinning around, got it all right here. Totally darn it park. Rides, slides, thrills, and chills. It's Dorney. 2 great parks for the price of 1. Now even wetter with 2 super wave pools. Come on! Totally hot, totally now, totally cool, and totally wow. 2 parks, 1 price. Totally Dorney Park. Ha! Super Saver coupons available at participating Dunkin' Donuts.
Chad Bradford takes over the pitching. You see his numbers, but the 2 numbers you don't see are maybe the most important for a reliever: getting first batters out and stranding inherited runners.
Yeah, he's getting 79% of the first batters out. Stranded inherited runners only allowed 1 of 23 to score. Right-handers in his career only hit 226 off Bradford. He hasn't allowed a run in his last 10 outings. Those are some heady numbers.
Clark the tying run at second in a 5-4 game, and Jeff Conine the batter. Conine 1 for 3, singled and scored in the 6th. Well, twice now the Orioles have fought back within a run, and Bradford trying to keep them there. And he gets ahead of Conine, 0-1.
We've got to be pretty impressed with Bradford, the way he's come in and battled against these right-handers. But you've got to give the Orioles some credit too. After Wright's home run, you thought that maybe that would be the dagger, but it has not been. They've fought hard. A lot of credit to Sam Palazzo and his staff.
1-1 to Conine. And this is a Baltimore team that had won only 1 road series this year before this weekend.
Well, you want to be a right-handed hitter against this. You never see the ball. Almost scrapes his knuckles on the ground as he throws that frisbee slider to Conine.
There's that first batter average against Conine. Against Bradford, as Conine fouls it off 1-2. Melvin Mora, another right-hand hitter, waiting on deck. The Orioles have out-hit the Mets 10-5, but the Mets holding on to that skinny lead. Glavine hoping Bradford can keep that lead and give him a chance for his 10th win of the year. On 1-2, Conine pops it foul.
You see Castro going out to talk to Heilman. They've really had a little trouble here communicating on the pitch selection. So Castro wants to make sure that he's thinking along with Bradford. So there's no problem with him shaking his head. Look at that.
That is amazing. It really is. That's off the charts.
His other relievers better be paying for his dinner when they go on the road. Starters and relievers.
There's just nothing more important for a reliever than keeping those other guys' runners from scoring. And he ties up Conine. He went around, strike 3. Great pitch by Bradford. A quote-unquote fastball to get Conine.
Well, I'll tell you, he threw it by him. I mean, the way he gives that deception, that couple of curveballs and then that fastball, as you say, Gary, right in a perfect spot.
You know, it's almost like a knuckleball pitcher's fastball.
Yeah.
You know, you can throw the ball 78 miles an hour, and the contrast makes it look that much tougher.
Well, you have a swing like that from a veteran hitter who's usually good in that situation.
So 2 away, and here's Melvin Mora, 2 for 3 on the day. Melvin's had a good series, playing in his old yard for the first time since he was traded. Bradford got him out in last night's game. Came on with 2 in scoring position in the 9th inning and got Mora to ground out to short. And Melvin's just 1 for 8 in his career against Bradford. Clark the tying run at second and 2 down. 5-4 New York, 7th inning. On a stifling day, Chad Bradford from Mississippi should be right at home. Behind on Moore at 2-0. He's got some wiggle room here, but as much as you can play around with first base open, that's also the go-ahead run of the game.
Which means you'll probably see a 2-0 probably slider here, but he'll probably center it. We'll see what Ramon Castro calls.
On 2-0, Mora takes it on the inside corner. 2-1.
Well, Castro did a nice thing there. He not only called for a slider outside, then a fastball inside. That's good to do with a guy in second, because if you don't give any direction and only give it on one pitch, the runner on second base knows exactly what you're calling. Good job by Ramon Castro.
Bradford took a little off the fastball, 77 miles an hour. That's changing speeds. 2-1 the count. And he comes inside again and gets even on Moore at 2-2.
Well, both Tejada and Moore at the plate are high ball hitters, so you can keep that down and in. See how much he misses that pitch by? That two-seamer that he throws just turns it over straight down and in.
So does he go back there again?
I think you have to go down back there again, just maybe more inside, and if you miss, he'd go with a 3-2 frisbee.
2-2 to Mora. Breaking ball, and he misses 3-2.
The reason I would have went with a sinker in there, because then he could have surprised me with a 3-2 frisbee. Now if you throw it, you throw them 2 in a row. Gives the hitter a little better chance to adapt.
Miguel Tejada waiting on deck. Three and 2 to Melvin Mora. To right field. Over goes Marrero. It's tremendous play by Marrero. Side retired. Eli Marrero has been all over right field, and he keeps the Mets in the lead with a lunging grab on Melvin Mora. New York Mets baseball is brought to you by your Tri-State quality Ford dealer. Check out the Ford Explorer at a price that's even better. Here's our Chevrolet defensive gem of the game. Brought to you by the latest offers from Chevrolet. And Eli Marrero started this game with a catch in right center, and he may have just saved the game with another one.
He did. He took kind of an angle where he was coming in at first, but then made the adjustment, and a great leaping catch for the Mets, saving that inning for Chad Bradford.
Mets have gotten some extraordinary defensive outfield play, not only from their starters, but from their reserves as well. Chad Bradford, pumped up, keeps that streak intact of stranding inherited runners. Now 1 out of 25 have scored against Bradford this year. As you look at the rookie left-hander Kurt Perkins on to pitch for Baltimore.
Well, look at that ERA. The reason for that ERA is not allowed to run in 15 of his 17 outings. Look at that average against left-handed hitters, 0.80.
Juaner Sanchez getting ready to pitch the 8th for New York after Feliciano and Bradford took care of the 7th behind Glavine, who's in line for his 10th win of the year if the bullpen can make it stand up. The Mets will try and get some breathing room here. Reyes 1 out of 3. Reyes got the Mets started with 2 out in the 5th inning with a base hit. The next 2 hitters, Marrero and Beltran, were hit with pitches. And then David Wright unloaded a grand slam, and the Mets have not been behind since. Again, Reyes bringing those corners in. It's 2-0. There's Marrero on deck. He's had quite an introduction to the fans here at Shea today, hasn't he?
Yeah, he really has. Fan favorite already, as they gave him a great hand when he came off the field after that great catch.
3-0. The first pitch of the game that Tom Glavine threw, Brian Roberts hit one to the gap in right center, and Marrero made a nice running catch. Later in that inning, he made a nice play going to the line. He's made one coming in. He's been all over the place out there. Not bad for a guy who started his career as a catcher. Now Perkins behind 3-0 on Reyes. He takes a strike. Perkins has been a starting pitcher for most of his minor league career. Double-A last year, but he's been a godsend since coming up.
Off Mora, and that one hit him right in the knee. Reyes is safe, and Mora is down.
Well, with the thought of a bunt, it's so difficult to have enough reaction time. Mora playing in. That ball scalded at him, was not able to get his glove up in time.
But they got him right on the left knee. And you hope that it just stunned him. And nice to see Melvin so quickly on his feet. I mean, the force with which that ball ricocheted all the way to the second base bag will tell you how hard it hit him.
Well, this is like being a hockey goalie facing a slap shot. Look how hard that ball's hit. And Mora, who has unbelievably quick hands, could not react.
Remember that Reyes had twice brought Mora in close with fake bunt attempts. And the closer that third baseman is, the more force he takes off the bat. He's playing 75 feet from home plate.
You know he's not going to leave the game. Melvin Mora, one of the tougher players in baseball, trying to walk it off.
So Reyes aboard leading off here in the bottom of the 7th with the Mets sporting a 1-run lead. Let's say they play it here with Marrero, who's been on base 3 times today in addition to his defensive prowess. Infield hit, walk, hit batsman. He's stolen 2 bases. He's scored a run. He's had quite a day. And he lays down a nice bunt. And Perkins will have to make the play to first. So Eli Marrero's excellent day continues with a sacrifice bunt. 1-4, moving Reyes to second.
Well, great technique here by Marrero. See, he pushes that ball, gets that bat in front of the plate, pushes it towards that right side. He was trying not only to sacrifice, but maybe beat the pitcher over to first base and maybe get a hit for himself. But Perkins makes a nice play. Roberts covers in time. Sacrifice for Marrero.
You got Beltran up, and then Wright and Franco behind him, and you have to believe that we might see a right-hander come in to face Wright and Franco. The only danger that Sam Perlaza runs into there is that he might run into Carlos Delgado. So we'll see how it plays out. Beltran has been aboard twice today with a walk and a hit batsman. Beltran 0 for 9 in this series. We'll see if Reyes thinks about stealing third in this spot with a left-hander on the mound. Reyes has 1 steal today, 30 for the year. Roberts keeping an eye on him, and Beltran takes a strike.
I think it'll be difficult for Jose Reyes to steal third because of Berkins. He has a nice slide step to the plate, delivers the ball very quickly to home plate.
Reyes' base hit was his 2nd of the day. He's got a 6-game hitting streak, and in 5 of the 6 games he's had 2 or more hits. Now Reyes is in one of those modes right now. Good breaking ball by Berkins, 0-2.
Although they're totally different players. Mookie Wilson was a lot like that when he played. Mookie could not smell a hit for 3 or 4 games, and then he'd go 8 for 11.
And like Reyes, he created havoc when he got on the base paths. Reyes has already scored a run today, 56 for the year. That leads the National League, and Beltran trying to get him home again. But behind 0-2. Tries to hold up in the breaking ball and stopped it in time. Chris Guccione, the first base umpire, 1-2.
A slider down and in to Beltran, strong enough to hold that bat just barely from going around.
Berkins is a nice looking breaking ball.
It's great stuff. That's why I guess when you look at this Oriole team, if you're an Oriole fan, you've got to be encouraged. A lot of young, good arms.
Now, Berkins and Britton, the 2 guys who pitched in relief today, weren't with the club when they started the season, but they have really helped solidify the Orioles bullpen. Another breaking ball, and it's 2-2. Chris Reyes stepped in as their closer this year after they lost B.J. Ryan as a free agent, and he's been perfect.
Got some nice young players. Markakis, Brandon Fahey.
Just have to figure out how it all fits together.
Yeah, that's the tough part.
Because, you know, you've got a guy like Miguel Tejada who's been a wonderful player in his career. To third base. And Morris shaking off that shot off the knee, but he throws it away. And runners are safe at first and third. And you have to wonder, in straightening up to make that throw, whether the knee had any impact on the throw. But the Mets try to take advantage now.
Well, I would say it absolutely does. What happens when you get hit like that is that it just starts to swell up now.
And you could see as he was making that little half step, Ronnie, he couldn't put weight on that left knee.
Well, that little crow hop, he's trying to be very ginger with that left knee, and end result, he's not doing what he usually does time in and time again, and that's the errant throw. It's the result.
It's like you talk about with pitchers when they hurt their foot, it affecting their arm. Well, there was Mora throwing that ball away. So we'll get the right-hander on to face David Wright. This call to the bullpen brought to you by Singular Wireless, raising the bar. Next Sunday, the first-place Mets take their heavy-hitting lineup to Toronto for an interleague battle with the Blue Jays. Don't miss an inning. The Mets take on the Blue Jays Sunday at noon right here on the WB11. There's the rest of the Toyota interleague scoreboard. The Kansas City Royals trying to squeeze out a victory in Houston. They're in a rain delay in St. Louis. Now they're back underway with the Cardinals up 2-0 on the Rockies. Cardinals now 4.5 up on the Reds, who've been struggling. Detroit got 6 in the first and trying to sweep the Cubs. And the Padres just a game out of first place now, leading the Angels early on. Oakland goes for their 10th in a row this afternoon as they play the Dodgers, Boston, and Atlanta tonight.
35-year-old veteran Todd Williams, who did a great job for Baltimore last year, appearing in 72 games. He began the season, though, on the disabled list with right shoulder inflammation, but now back, but giving up a lot of hits so far as Todd Williams. Wright looking for one right here.
The league hitting .327 against Williams, and here's Wright, who had a grand slam his last time up, and he drives one to left. Rogers has to play on a short hop and didn't know where the ball was. Where was it? Was it in his hat or down his shirt? But Reyes comes in to score. What a weird one that was. Nobody in the ballpark, including Rogers, knew where the ball was. It was stuck in his shirt behind his back. How about that?
What do they say, Gary? Come to the ballpark, you see something new every day. I've never seen this happen before. Little sleight of hand trick by Rogers.
That's one you'll see replayed on every blooper reel from now until baseball stops being played.
You have an itch?
Now David Wright drives in his 5th run of the day, and Ed Rogers will be immortalized. 6-4 New York. Here's Julio Franco taking a strike. He trapped the ball, and then what happened? Oh, I see, it went up his sleeve.
And then around the shoulder. And
oh, man.
Harry Blackstone Jr. couldn't hide the ball like that.
You couldn't duplicate that in 1,000 years, and Franco has a base hit. Here comes Beltran around third. Rogers doesn't have it go up his shirt, but he throws it away. Here comes Wright around third, and he's going to make a break for the plate. Williams with the throw, and Wright is out at the plate. But now, wait a second. We're going to have obstruction called, and Wright is called safe. Obstruction is called against Melvin Mora as Wright came around third. The run will count, and Sam Perlazo out to argue. Actually, it was Tejada, not Mora, who obstructed Wright as he came around third base. And the third base umpire, Doug Innings, made the call. 2-run score on the play, and it's 8-4 New York. And there you see Wright brushing Tejada as he came around third.
Well, Wright really wasn't paying attention to Maniac there. He was just trying to read the ball as it started to rattle around the backstop. Williams got it in time, but Tejada standing right in the base path, right near the bag. You've got to give the runner room to get around.
So Julio Franco drives in a run, and David Wright steals a run, thanks to the obstruction call on Miguel Tejada. And Perlazo's not done yet. They'll probably charge an error to Ed Rogers, who's had himself quite an inning in the field. He wheeled that ball about 20 feet over the head of Javy Lopez, and by the time Todd Williams tracked it down all the way over near the first base dugout, that gave Wright the chance to score all the way from first base. They'll probably have to charge an error on Tejada for the obstruction. So there should be 2 errors on that play, including the RBI hit for Franco. What a wild inning this has been, and the Mets now have a 4-run lead. Here's Woodward, and he takes a strike. So that's exactly how they're scored. E7 on the left fielder Rogers for throwing the ball away, and then E6 on Tejada, allowing Wright to score on the obstruction. So there have been 3 errors in the inning committed by the Orioles. And Woodward takes ball 1. Well, we mentioned Todd Williams has given up a lot of hits. I don't think he's given up hits quite like this before.
Oh.
What a strange one this has been, but the Mets fighting right back after the Orioles cut the Met lead to 1 again. This was cruising along as a 1-0 game till the bottom of the 5th, but the teams have scored in every half inning since. This inning began with Reyes banking one off the left knee of Melvin Mora. Marrero sacrificed him up, and then Beltran hit the routine ground ball to Mora that he threw away for an error. And there goes Franco stealing third without a throw. So the second oldest player ever to steal a base keeps getting older and keeps stealing bases. Father Time steals a base on Father's Day.
Oh, listen, if you're not going to pay any attention to him, Franco, the experienced veteran, just take third.
So that'll force the Orioles to bring the infield in with 1 out. And you can't steal it any easier than that. 3-1 the count to Woodward. You got Castro on deck. I think if we're the Orioles, I'd be inclined to throw ball 4 here and hope to get a ground ball double play. But they go after Woodward, and he fouls it off. Well, Todd Williams came on with first and third and 1 out. David Wright had a sinking line drive to left.
that was trapped by Rogers, went up his shirt as a run came home. And then, not to be outdone, Franco got a base hit that Rogers threw away. That scored one. And then Tejada's obstruction scored another to make it 8-4 New York. As strange an inning as you'll ever see. And Woodward rifles one foul. And you're right, Ronnie. It's really an old adage in baseball, and it certainly is a fact. You come to the ballpark and you just never know what you might see.
That was unbelievable.
I once saw here at Shea Stadium in a tie game in the bottom of the, might have been the bottom of the 12th or 13th inning, bases loaded, scoreless game. Darryl Boston had a ball go into his shirt as Woodward strikes out. A pitch that just went right into his shirt as he stood at home plate. And, you know, Darryl Boston was the coolest guy in the world. He plucked the ball out of his shirt, dropped it on home plate, walked to first, game over.
I think the strangest thing I've ever seen here at Shea, as we see this play again.
Oh, there's a good angle. That's a great angle right there. Right up the shirt. Not in 100 years will you see that again. And Castro takes a strike.
I was saying I saw Mike Schmidt on first base, no one on, pass ball or wild pitch past Gary Carter, rattled around the backstop, took a right turn, went like it was going in the Philadelphia dugout, just stayed on top of the wood. That was before they had the netting there. He scored from first on a wild pitch.
Through the hole, base hit for Castro. That brings home Franco with the 4th run of the inning, and it's 9-4 New York. Second RBI of the day for Castro.
Hey, give credit to Julio Franco for getting to third base. Markakis with that great arm in right field. There definitely would have been a play on that single by Ramon Castro. Nice job, though, by staying behind the ball on a sinker ball pitcher and shooting that hole.
And these are looking a little bit more like the Mets of the road trip, taking advantage of the opposition's miscues. Millage, the 8th man up in the inning, and he takes a strike. Because it seemed as though through that entire trip, the Mets were forcing mistakes and taking advantage of mistakes.
Stealing bases, taking the extra base. You know, the team made the error of the Orioles, but you got to still score, and they did.
0-2 to Millage.
Woodward not being able to get Franco in with one out, so Castro picks him up with a base hit.
And it's all added up to a 4-run 7th inning to give the Mets breathing room and Tom Glavine a better chance at his 10th win. To right center field and hit well. Patterson over in the gap, and he runs it down. Nice running catch by Patterson. And that finally puts the brakes on an inning that the Orioles would prefer to forget. Patterson with a good play in center, but it's an inning Ed Rogers, the left fielder, will remember forever. Now the Mets now with a 5-run lead as we go to the 8th inning after a wacky 4-run 7th for New York. And Duaner Sanchez will take over the pitching.
Well, Sanchez was going to come in even if the Mets didn't score any runs, try to hold this Oriole team. But after 2 losses, I think you bring in Sanchez, one of your best pitchers out of that pen, and try to seal this victory for the Mets.
They'll take on Miguel Tejada leading off in the top of the 8th inning. Here's David Wright, who scored on that obstruction play. I'm wondering, Ronnie, as he came around third and brushed with Tejada and then made that dash to the plate, do you think he knew that he had a free run? In other words, if he breaks for the plate there and gets thrown out, do you think he knew that the obstruction call had been made?
Well, I'm thinking that he might have known because 2 things. One, he knew he brushed Tejada, who was standing in the baseline. And secondly, wouldn't you think that Doug Eddings, as soon as he sees it, would raise his hands?
He
you
didn't.
can see.
He didn't.
But too late. He did not point it out. So I think Wright might have just went on his own thinking that he could beat the throw from Williams. But Eddings did make the call, but too late for Wright to hear.
And isn't the umpire supposed to make some sort of indication while the ball is still in play? Because looking at that replay, Eddings didn't. He waited till the play was over.
He didn't. He pointed, but he did not. Usually big hands come up and you're saying, you know, obstruction, 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 which he didn't do.
Just as with a balk, the play continues while the call's being made, and Tejada down on strikes for the first out. So Sanchez picking up in the 8th inning after Chad Bradford did his usual job of stranding runners in a 1-run game in the 7th with help from Eli Marrero out in right field. And here's Javy Lopez, 2 for 3 on the day. And that's hit to center and hit well. Beltran back and has enough room to run it down. So Lopez hit at 394 and Beltran made the catch. 2 away. Well, here's today's Dodge trivia question. There's Tom Trebelhorn, the Orioles third base coach, who was the manager for Willie Randolph in 1991 with Milwaukee when Willie finished 3rd in the batting race. And the question is, who won the AL batting title that season?
Well, I know because he wore me out in that last month of the season, last couple of months of the season.
So you're saying the guy who won the batting title won it on your shoulders?
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, Willie. Apologize. I was new to the league. I didn't know him.
That was right near the end of Willie's career. In fact, I think the following year was he came to the Mets in '92, and that was his last year.
And I believe that's the highest that Willie ever hit, that average.
There's Corey Patterson, who's driven in a couple of runs today, and he pops up the first pitch. Castro didn't know where it was, but it was in the crowd. Well, here's the interesting answer to that Dodge trivia question. We won't make you stew too long. 15 years ago, who won that American League batting title? Julio Franco. Yes, the man's been around forever.
Could not solve him. Of course, the Texas Rangers in that American League West with the Oakland A's that I was playing with in '91 traded that year from the Mets to Montreal. Montreal couldn't wait to get rid of me. I was only there for a couple of weeks, and they sent me over to Oakland.
And there are the numbers, and there's some pretty good names in that list. Wade Boggs 2nd, and there's Griffey 4th, and Molitor 5th. 2 Hall of Famers in that group, and one more who's surely headed that way in Griffey.
Well, I'll never forget in 1994, Ken Griffey Jr., when the owners locked out the players, he had a grand slam home run off me that night when the games ended.
Into center field, and in comes Beltran, and that ends the inning.
I'll finish that thought later.
So 1-2-3 inning for Duaner Sanchez, 9-4 New York. Changes for the Orioles. Ed Rogers, who had one go up his shirt in left field, will move a little closer to third base. And Brandon Fahey in to play left field as Melvin Mora, who got hit on the knee in that last inning, comes out. And rookie Sendy Real takes over the pitching. And no, that's not a misprint. That is how you spell his name.
And how you say it. Strikeouts only 11 in 30 innings, but in Bowie last year he had 75 strikeouts in 75 innings. More of a thrower than a pitcher, this 25-year-old, but has great stuff and great promise.
And with Todd Williams hurt the early part of the year, Real was very heavily used early in the season as a rookie. Andy Chavez will bat for Duaner Sanchez leading off. Mets with a 9-4 lead as they look to finish off this series with the Orioles on a positive note and welcome in the Cincinnati Reds tomorrow night. The Reds lost again today to the White Sox 8-1. So Cincinnati, after having fought their way back into a first place tie with the Cardinals a few days ago, has now lost 8 out of 10 on their homestand that finished today. Chavez fouls it off.
Interesting to see the Met bullpen. Aaron Heilman up and throwing, and obviously, Gary, just a situation with this big lead of trying to get Aaron an inning, trying to work on his arm position, and trying to get him back pitching well again.
Actually, the situation couldn't be more perfect for Heilman as Chavez rolls one to short and Tejada throws him out one away. Gary Cohen, Ron Darling, Chris Cotter, and our entire WB11 crew. Very happy to have you with us on Father's Day at Shea Stadium. It's been a hot, humid afternoon and a kind of a strange ball game, but the Mets, who lost the first 2 of this series, working with a 9-4 lead in the 8th inning. And here is Reyes, who's gotten a couple of rallies started for the Mets in the 5th and again in the 7th today with base hits. Facing the rookie right-hander Real.
And he sends it to center, where Patterson has it 2 away. So 2 quick outs.
Well, I'll tell you though, do you see the emergence of Beltran starting to become the Carlos Beltran you thought he'd become? Jose Reyes seems to be getting better daily as we watch him play.
Beltran hoping for a turn at bat in this inning. That's up to the guy at the plate who has had maybe the most important day of all, and that's Eli Marrero. On base 3 times plus a sacrifice. 3 terrific plays in right field, including one that kept the Mets in the lead in the 7th inning. And he takes ball 1 from Real. So yet another Met irregular providing an important performance. And this has really been one of the big stories for the Mets in 2006 is the play of their bench. 1-1 to Marrero. Here's the catch in the 7th.
Well, he came in a little bit, right, Gary, and then took a different route. Just caught that ball on the end of his glove, but great catch to save that inning.
And he waves at the slider from Real. 1-2. Sendy Real with the silent L.
I see that very
That's
often.
a new one on me.
Yeah, that's right.
Remember Luis Leal?
That's right.
With Toronto? He had the silent R. No, he had no R at all. And Marrero strikes out, and so a 1-2-3 inning for Real. That'll take us to the 9th, where Tom Glavine's in position for a career victory number 285, 9-4 New York. New York Mets baseball is brought to you by Nissan and your Nissan dealers. By Verizon Online DSL, now at a great low price. By Toyota, a smart way to keep moving forward. By Air Canada. By Audi, it's greater to lead than follow. By Budweiser, bright, crisp, clean, pure. This is Budweiser, this is beer. And by BMW, the ultimate driving machine. And Aaron Heilman tries for a bounce-back effort, looking for the final 3 outs with the Mets up 9-4 in the 9th. Ed Rogers up for the 2nd time, takes a strike.
You know, Rick Peterson has talked about that Heilman is having a difficult time right now finding that proper arm slot. And I used to throw 3/4 myself, certainly not as low as Aaron Heilman.
And Reyes picks off the line drive with a snow cone, 1 away.
But Mel Stoudemire used to always talk about a lazy hand, and sometimes that might happen to Heilman, as you see, kind of throws across his body. What I mean by a lazy hand, you can see when the ball comes out of his hand that the ball's coming out of the side of his hand. That makes for movement, but the movement will be around a flatter plane. I used to always try to make sure that I had not a lazy hand, a strong hand, that I was on top of the baseball.
Nick Markakis swings and misses at the changeup. Well, how hard is it when you're coming from almost the side to keep your hand on top of the baseball?
It's very hard. You know, I'll tell you, it's very hard, but it's something you have to do, or you're not going to have that sink. You're just going to have that flat movement.
Heilman keeping those 2 pitches down, and he's ahead on Markakis 0-2.
That one's good. That ball's dipping a little bit, not flat.
Struck him out. Heilman gets Markakis on 3 pitches, and the Orioles are down to their final out.
Nice motion. See that close front shoulder? Hides the ball from Markakis. And something he doesn't usually do a lot, but it'd be nice to see him do it more. Goes up in the strike zone to change the hitter's eyesight. Then after that, he can go back with his changeup.
Kevin Millar will pinch hit for the Orioles down to their final out. Millar started the first 2 games of this series at first base and went 1 for 7. And Heilman trying to finish it off. Strike 1. Mets have used 5 pitchers today. Tom Glavine went the first 6 innings plus and stands to get his 10th win. That would be tops in the major leagues. 1-1 to Millar. It'll be Orlando Hernandez against Bronson Arroyo as the Reds come to Shea tomorrow night. 2-1. Mets got clutch relief pitching today again from Chad Bradford, who always seems to get key outs, and he did again today before the Mets broke the game open. 2-1 to Millar. Broken bat grounder foul. 2-2. Take a look at the Jeep game summary. David Wright giving the Mets the lead with a grand slam. He's driven in 5. Also stole a run on an obstruction play. Glavine in line for the win. Melvin Mora 2 RBIs, but left the game after getting hit on the knee by a Reyes line drive. 2-2 to Millar. Struck him out, and the ball game is over. Aaron Harmon with a nice bounce back effort, a 1-2-3 ninth to finish it off for Tom Glavine. As Pedro celebrates, Glavine has his 285th fifth career win, his 10th of the year, and his 8th in a row. David Wright a big factor in the Mets able to pull out the finale of the series after dropping the first 2.
Well, I'll tell you, Ramon Castro had a nice night behind the plate, also a home run and a couple RBIs. And Eli Marrero with some great plays in right field, one to save one of the innings.
Well, Pedro Martinez celebrating a Mets win here at Shea. We'll be back in a moment. Well, here at Shea, the Mets pull out the final game of the series. Final score, Mets 9 and Orioles 4. Be sure to join us on the WB 11 for our next Mets telecast next Sunday at noon when the Mets play the Toronto Blue Jays. Now for Ron Darling and Chris Cotter and our entire crew, I'm Gary Cohen. Now stay tuned for Everybody Loves Raymond, already in progress. Good night, everybody.